Our battle will be legendary. Are you really going to choose just Excalibur transparency? Dulio asked Noah. Some people would be offended if you said, just Excalibur transparency, bro, Noah countered, casually putting the sword over his shoulder. Also, if I get Durandal, doesn't that give Cardinal Strata a reason to train me more? Quote. You may be onto something. While Vasco did train the three, it only happened on rare occasions, but if a successor of Durandal was found between the three of them, the frequency of Vasco taking time to specifically train them would definitely increase. Noah leaned back with a smile. I know, right, so, where do we go? Noah asked, back at the entrance. I think we just come back the way we came. Lavinia nodded towards the gate they entered through. Well, I guess you're right. I kind of expected a back door. Noah shrugged, leaving the gate with Lavinia and Dulio in tow. As they left, they were back in view of the large audience of higher-ups and prospective holy sword wielders. Noah went first, showing off Excalibur transparency, and garnering applause. With nonchalance bordering on arrogance, he handed the sword off to a staff member and stepped down. However, due to this apparent casualness of his actions, some exorcists thought that they had a chance of holding Excalibur, and their competitive spirit flared up. There were some jealous expressions, as the thought of, how come this guy was born with everything, spread amongst some exorcist trainees and even veteran exorcists. Noah looked around to see if he could see Valpierre Galilei, but to be honest, he didn't remember what the man looked like at all. After all, he only knew about this event just a week before it actually started. He inwardly shrugged. Well, Noah didn't really know if Valpierre did any weird stuff before he started on the Holy Sword project, so even if Noah accused Valpierre, he didn't have much evidence. Or he could just kill the man and be done with it. It reminded him of someone with regressor syndrome. Killing someone because he knew what they would do in the future. Effective. Watching as Dulio showed off his holy sword and sat down, and Lavinia also showed off her chosen holy sword, they kind of ran out of things to do. The three really didn't want to spend the rest of the time just watching, as there would be a total of 15 groups. Even the three of them alone took 20 minutes. Noah looked toward their chaperone for the event, who was sitting a few tables away with the other cardinals, Ewald Cristaldi, who pointedly ignored his pleading expression. Well, no choice. Noah stood up to use the restroom, and Dulio and Lavinia followed. Since they didn't have a valid reason to decline their request, the three left the hall. Taking out a pack of cards smuggled in by Gabriel as one of the few games they played together, they played a few rounds of Old Maid, and made their way back as the first person returned from the Hall of Swords. Noah ignored Ewald's exasperated expression, and sat down at his assigned table with Lavinia and Dulio. Glancing at the first person out, the face was pretty familiar. Wasn't that the guy that he chose as his first pick? David Serro, if he remembered correctly. David held out Excalibur Galatine with pride, looking at his master and giving Noah, who sat decently far away, a determined glance to show that he wasn't inferior to Longinus wielders in any way. As someone who was still rather hot-headed as he was still in his youth, having heard rumors about the three gave him a feeling of competitiveness, having been raised as a prodigy of swordsmanship since a young age. Unfortunately, Noah wasn't even paying attention to him. Instead, he was smugly looking at Dulio and Lavinia and flexing that his first pick actually got a holy sword, and they looked at Noah with jealous expressions, none of them even sparing another glance at David. However, David didn't know about the small bet the three had. David's expression darkened. Did that mean that he was so insignificant that he wasn't even put into consideration in the minds of the Longinus wielders? He handed the sword off to a staff member and walked down, his mood significantly worse. He would show them during the Exorcist Youth Swordsmanship Tournament what talent truly was. Plus, damn, Dulio, how unlucky even are you? Your pix hasn't even gotten a holy sword yet. Noah picked at Dulio, who clasped his hands in nervous prayer. The 5 groups of young exorcists and exorcist trainees were completed, and Dulio's 5 picks hadn't even obtained a holy sword. Noah had 2 people, and Lavinia actually had 3. Griselda was also able to pick up La Pucelle, and with even greater proficiency than Lavinia. She even gave Lavinia an apologetic look when she came back from the room. Well, Lavinia didn't really care much, as she didn't even know swordsmanship, despite being forced to exercise. If she actually had ownership of a holy sword, that would just mean more training. But Dulio still had a chance. There was still the 10 groups of untrained volunteers and potentials. Dulio closed his eyes in prayer. Wait, are you actually praying? Noah looked at Dulio in confusion, before chortling, Lavinia following suit. Quote. No, you don't understand. I've had this food for like 2 years now. It'd be weird if I started complaining about it now. Because when he first started training, he wasn't that picky regarding food. He said that the food was okay when a staff member asked while they were still accommodating to the Longinus wielder, so it was probably because of him that the church kept the shitty food. There was no way Dulio was going to tell the other two that it was technically his fault for the food being that white slop and backtrack on his statement that he made a while ago. Noah looked at Dulio with suspicion, before realizing something, grabbing onto his collar with a smile. So it's your fault the food is this bad, isn't it? He asked with an accusatory tone. Dulio froze at the accusation. No. He looked to the side, trying not to make eye contact with Noah, but he fell out of the frying pan and into the fire, matching eye contact with Lavinia's suspicious gaze. Aha! Dulio looked away from Lavinia's stare and turned to the other side, but he hit eye contact with Ewald, who had a confused expression. He closed his eyes in resignation. Yes, I said it was fine when they first asked if it was okay. Noah nodded. The defendant is guilty. At that moment exactly, there was a wave of whispers around the room, getting the attention of the three. What the hell? Even Dulio wondered if it was that deep. They looked around confused, but as they looked at the stage, they finally understood the reason behind all the commotion. It really showed how little they actually cared about the festival. The only good part being the food tasting pretty good. At the entrance of the Hall of Swords, stood a nervous-looking little girl, holding onto a holy sword like it was going to get stolen, the sword even taller than herself. The sword was familiar to the three, after all, it was the holy sword that Lavinia brought out. Because of its requirements being lax with maidens, there were actually a large number of people who could wield the sword. However, Le Pucelle in the hands of the young girl was gleaming with newly polished silver, and an aura of holy flames could be seen emitting from the sword. In the Fate universe, Le Pucelle was the crystallization of Jeanne d'Arc's burning at the stake in an offensive form. The actual sword was the sword of Saint Catherine, which Jeanne never actually swung. However, in the universe of DxD, Le Pucelle was a rare sword where the higher the compatibility was with the sword, an additional ability was unlocked. The holy flames, symbolizing Jeanne d'Arc's burning at the stake. The same holy flames that Noah wielded with Incinerate Anthem. However, the requirements for that ability was so high, the only people able to use the holy flames of Le Pucelle were people carrying the spirit of Jeanne d'Arc herself. After all, as a maiden it was impossible for descendants to even exist. Noah watched with slight interest as the holy flames were surrounding her in a protective dome as some clergy tried to approach her, to no avail. He vaguely remembered someone with the spirit of Jeanne d'Arc in the anime. He didn't actually know that she joined the church before joining the hero faction. While Noah wasn't aware of this, but Noah could in a sense be indirectly blamed for Jeanne being sent to the Vatican. This was because of the confidence of the church increasing to unrealistic levels due to Noah and Lavinia joining the church. With 3 Longinus wielders out of the 13 in the church alone, it would be unusual if their confidence didn't border on arrogance. It was the main reason why they had even created such a large event just for holy swords in the first place. While originally they would have just quietly looked for holy sword wielders in orphanages, they wanted to ride the momentum of such heavy hitters in the church. They even had a plan of creating a small group of elites which included the 3 Longinus wielders. Because of the 3, they had even set up an exhibition match to showcase their abilities. Well, not that Noah or rather any of the 3 were aware of that. The church really didn't tell them jack shit. But it was because of this widespread gathering of children with even a sliver of potential, even normally overlooked smaller orphanages such as Jeanne's were inspected. As clergymen swarmed the young girl, hovering outside of Le Pucelle's range, even Vasco was getting fed up, gesturing toward Noah to follow. Noah blinked at the sudden event, before sighing and getting up, flanked by Dulio and Lavinia. As they walked, Noah looked back at the two. Quote. Hey, don't we look kind of cool? Lavinia sighed. If you say that it detracts from the coolness. Quote. You right, Noah nodded reluctantly. As the 3 followed Vasco, the clergy spread out like they were Moses parting the sea. Making their way through the crowd, they finally arrived at the young girl clutching onto Le Pucelle, the flames becoming even more violent because of the young girl's stress levels rising as she was surrounded by whispering middle-aged men with greed in their eyes. To be honest, even Noah would be a little creeped out if middle-aged men were just whispering around him, eyes trained on him with greed. As Vasco arrived, the clergy reluctantly dispersed, and the young girl breathed a sigh of relief, but her breath hitched looking at the hulking mass of muscle that was Vasco Strata, the holy flames flaring up again. Vasco, who was about to say reassurances, froze at the young girl's expression, his smile frozen, as he looked at Noah with a half-pleading and half-resigned expression. Noah inwardly chuckled. Noah walked up to the ball of holy flames and just straight up put his hands into the flames, garnering gasps from the clergy. The young girl closed her eyes in fright at the thought that she harmed someone. Since he didn't feel any pain, he just walked into the flames into the small sphere and became face to face with the young girl, who blinked in surprise. With his appearance and protection of the faith, he probably had the best first impression skill if that even existed. Protection of the faith generates increased goodwill for first meetings. ... Well, now he had a blessing for that one. He gave the young girl a small smile. It kind of reminded him of when he first met Lavinia. Hello, the name's Noah. What's yours? ... Jean. So the girl's actual name was Jean. Noah had expected it to be a scenario like Cao Cao where he changed his name to his ancestor's name. Nice to meet you, Jean. Noah took a seat and looked outside the ball of fire that Jean had created. He frowned at the looks he was getting, and reinforced the protective shield that Le Pucelle created. Snap, whoosh. The original protective sphere of fire was still see-through in some areas, but with Noah snapping his fingers, the sphere became fully opaque, causing some clergymen to back up in fright. Jean blinked in surprise, but looked back at Noah, who looked relaxed and looked at Jean with a reassuring smile. He wasn't familiar with being a therapist or something similar, but having talked to Gabriel for a few months, even he picked up on a few things. Let's have a short conversation. Jean carefully nodded. I'm not going to do anything bad to you, Noah chuckled. Well, the clergyman might. That made Jean pause, not helping her in the slightest. Well, do you remember that big-looking guy who was next to me? Noah asked, getting a nod. You can trust that guy. Actually, out of anyone in the church that aren't my friends, I trust that guy the most, even if his appearance is rather frightening. Noah gave an exaggerated sigh of exasperation. Jean puffed out her cheeks. She didn't like this place. These people took her away, and said it was special. But she didn't want to be special. And the sister smiled when they took her. Why did she smile? Noah looked at her expression. Well, she's probably the same as Dulio, getting forcefully drafted. While you probably didn't want to be sent here, if you're here, not make the most of it. Noah willingly joined because of the benefits compared to homelessness. ... Why should I listen to you? She pouted, arms crossed. Noah felt like an recruiter, but it was true. There was probably no way the church would send Jean back. Her carrying the spirit of Jeanne d'Arc was one thing, but if Noah remembered correctly, she also had a sacred gear. ... Well, we have Taco Tuesday. ... Jean looked at Noah in confusion. ... Okay, I'll be serious. We don't have Taco Tuesday. Silence. Okay, I'll actually be serious. The church probably won't let you go. But if you get stronger to the point where they can't control you, you might even be able to visit your home. ... What if they make me do things I don't want to do? ... That's kind of inevitable, but I'll try my best, Noah said. He didn't really want to take classes either. It can't be that bad, can it? He mumbled. Jean looked much younger than him, around 5 years old if he was being generous. They probably wouldn't force a 5-year-old to train, would they? He's kind of weird, but not scary, I think, but there wasn't much of an option in the first place, was there? Jean gave a small nod. As her emotions calmed down, the holy flames also entered back into the sword. This was because instead of generating holy flames like Incinerate Anthem, Le Pucelle had a limited amount of holy flames usable in the sword itself. While the amount stored could fill at max a large courtyard, compared to the theoretical infinite amount of holy flames that Noah could expel without tiring, it wasn't even a fair comparison. Even though the sword took back the flames, the dome of flames was still active, causing Jean to look around in confusion. Oh, that's mine. With a wave of his hands, the flame dome dispersed, but before the middle-aged men could rush to Jean, Noah snapped his fingers cause it looked cool. A larger dome appeared, and now 3 people were in the flame dome. Vasco, Noah, and Jean. Jean looked wearily at Vasco, choosing to hide behind Noah. Vasco gave a resigned chuckle. Your Eminence. While Noah gave Vasco the proper respect, because it was just them, he didn't bother bowing. He knew that Vasco didn't really like such things, but due to his reputation and rank, it was inevitable. So, have you convinced little Jean? While it surprised him that Vasco already knew her name, but thinking about it, if Vasco wasn't able to get information on the girl even after their 5-minute conversation, Noah would be concerned about the ability of the church. Noah nodded. Well, I told her that I would try and protect her from the unsavory bunch, if you know what I mean. While Vasco gave most people the benefit of the doubt as they all believed in the Lord, Vasco had to admit some of his peers had rather distasteful personalities. Vasco solemnly nodded. To be honest, the best solution I can think of is, you know what I mean, right? Noah gestured toward himself, and Vasco easily got the implication. Well, Vasco thought of a similar solution, but Jean needed more potential even if she was able to wield Le Pucelle and had the spirit of Joan of Arc. Also, if you're looking for a more better reason, I have a good reason to believe that Jean here has a sacred gear. That made Vasco pause and Jean tilted her head at the unfamiliar term. Quote. Are you positive? Just a gut feeling. Vasco gave Noah the benefit of the doubt. When he had first read about the report of Noah's incinerate anthem and seen him for the first time, he could tell that he was different from the norm. His second form only reinforced his belief. Vasco hummed and thought before nodding. If she really does have a sacred gear, I will try to the best of my ability to send her to the Institute of Virtue on my name as Cardinal Priest Vasco Strada. Noah nodded. If he did it on his name, he was pretty confident, but the unfamiliar name of the training center made Noah pause. What was that corny-ass name? What's with that name? You didn't know. Well, obviously I didn't know. The training center tells us absolutely nothing. Quote. Well, I assumed you already knew. Vasco responded. Noah inwardly sighed. Well, it was too late. They were stuck with that corny name. Dang it. Well, it's too late. Thank you for the assistance, Cardinal Strada. Noah gave a small bow in appreciation. He turned toward Jean. Well, we'll be seeing each other soon. Jean looked at Noah with a hint of trust and nervousness. This person really was kind of weird, but maybe it was fine to trust him. You have changed the destiny of Jean. You have obtained the achievement the Saint of Orleans Protector plus 3 free pulls. Plus, this is low-key ridiculous. 3,000 Power Stones. For a first story with only 23 chapters, this is low-key crazy ASF. Here's your 2,100 Power Stone chapter. I'm currently writing the daily chapter RN. I know 4,000 is impossible, but it feels weird without a goal. Next week the intervals are def being 500. 300 is just too fucking small. Le Pucelle is a created sword in DxD that I just fucking made up. Just thought it made sense. Also, just showing how Noah does some butterfly effect shit is kind of entertaining. Also, Jean is only 5 in this chapter. Plus, we have Power Stone goals. 500 PS extra chapter complete. 800 PS extra chapter complete. 1100 PS extra chapter complete. 1400 PS extra chapter complete. 2100 PS extra chapter complete. 3000 PS extra chapter writing in progress. 4000 PS extra chapter. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, Power Stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 19 comments 0 vote. For real, for real. As Noah, Vasco, and Jean left the Flame Dome, there were some resigned expressions from the clergy. The prestige they would get if they were able to get the girl with the spirit of Jeanne d'Arc. Noah gave a reassuring nod toward Jean as she was led away by Vasco, then went back to Lavinia and Dulio. I have recruited a fellow sufferer. He gave a thumbs up, getting deadpans from the other two. Quote. She's too young to suffer such training. Dulio joked. Well, they'll probably just send her over to us to just learn and start training when she becomes our age, Noah reasoned. Well, that's probably pretty accurate, Lavinia agreed. As the three walked back to their own tables, the crowd parted once more, with Noah getting some looks of respect and jealousy. Noah sat down and got in a thinking position. Guys, Noah started, did you guys know that our training center is called the Institute of Virtue? Lavinia froze at the name, and Dulio was about to nod satisfactorily, because when his tutor asked about the name, he agreed and thought it sounded cool. However, he froze at Noah's next statement. They actually chose a corny-ass name for our training center. Lavinia nodded. What virtue were they supposedly training us in? Were they training saints or something? The only thing that came out of that training center was suffering. Quote. Dulio went silent. This got the attention of Noah and Lavinia. Quote. Was it you again? Noah grabbed onto Dulio's collar again. Quote. I use my right to remain silent. That's a thing in Italy. Noah started. He really only memorized some information to satisfy the tutors and the tests, then immediately forgot them. He may have the blessing of increased memory, but that didn't mean Noah could remember everything he remembered. Rememberception. Who cares? The defendant Dulio Gesualdo is guilty. Objection. A familiar voice intruded. Noah turned around, hands still on Dulio's collar, to be face to face with Ewald Cristaldi. Your Eminence, Dulio asked. Brother Dulio didn't have much of a say on the name of the institution's name. It was decided by the higher-ups in advance. His tutor had just asked him for his opinion on the name. Noah looked back at Dulio with suspicion, who was rapidly nodding. While he didn't even know about that, he wasn't going to take Ewald's assistance for granted. Technically, while Noah thought it was corny, his naming sense wasn't that good either. It was more of a joke than anything. He just shrugged and let go of Dulio's collar, as Dulio sighed in relief. Are you prepared for your exhibition match? Ewald asked the three. There would be 3 exhibition matches before the actual youth swordsmanship tournament. Noah versus Dulio. Noah versus Lavinia. Lavinia versus Dulio. However, none of the 3 were notified about this exhibition match. Quote. There's an exhibition match? Noah asked first, with Lavinia tilting her head in confusion behind him. Did the 3 really not know about the event? Quote. Yes, it's the event before the youth swordsmanship tournament. Quote. There was a youth swordsmanship tournament? Dulio asked, now getting a confused look from Ewald. Why does it seem like the 3 know absolutely nothing? While Ewald kind of suspected it, it was due to the majority of the staff at the Institute of Virtue assuming that the 3 already knew from Ewald, but Ewald assumed that the staff and notified the 3. Even Dulio barely got information from his swordsmanship tutor because he was a rather talkative man. Gabriel didn't really bother speaking to Noah regarding what was happening at the church, mainly because she really didn't know, and she would rather play games with Noah than talk about anything serious. The education tutors were prohibited from talking about their private lives and anything other than their education. Griselda hinted at the Holy Sword Festival, but didn't say anything about the youth swordsmanship tournament, mainly because it was decided 2 weeks before the festival and Griselda left a week prior to pick up the children. So in the end, the 3 Longinus wielders knew next to nothing about the Holy Sword Festival and the following events. Ewald inwardly sighed. Yes, Brother Noah and Brother Dulio are signed up to participate, while Lavinia will only participate in the exhibition matches. Noah and Dulio looked at Lavinia, who was looking at the 2 with a smug expression. Quote. When's the exhibition match? After the Holy Sword choosing event. The youth tournament is tomorrow. Quote. Did they want us to showcase everything? Noah didn't really want to show everything, both because of possible spies and the unsavory bunch. Quote. That is what the higher-ups desire, but you don't have to show everything. So you're just telling us to be super showy about it. Quote. That is to your own interpretation. The 3 Longinus wielders nodded. So make it as showy as possible but don't show much. Well, their sacred gears were built to be showy. As they bid Ewald goodbye, the 3 started discussing about how they could make it look the coolest. Don't do that big move you do in the beginning, I don't want to embarrass myself. Dulio started, looking at Noah, and Lavinia agreed. While Lavinia could counter it with her ice for a short while, because Noah could keep up that wave up near infinitely, and Lavinia didn't have any instantaneous moves faster than Noah's wave of flames like Dulio did. Her magic, while developed to an extent, still couldn't compare to the sheer firepower absolute demise granted. So she prioritized convenience and movement abilities. Because her physical abilities weren't as developed compared to Dulio and Noah, Lavinia inevitably fell short in close quarters combat. She was training in short-range teleportation, but wasn't confident enough to use it while fighting yet. Even the slightest of mistakes could lead to injury. And don't use that second form either. Dulio pointed out. That move was just plain unfair. It was even worse when he combined it with Incinerate Anthem. Well, I wasn't planning on using that one anyways. While the higher-ups saw Yueld's report on it, it wasn't detailed enough to specifically judge it. That was Yueld's consideration towards Noah. But I'll still do that big move, but I won't make it last forever. I'll do it for around 5 seconds after I fake charge it up. Since it was an exhibition match, overpowering Lavinia and Dulio wouldn't make for a fun match, and would only harm Dulio and Lavinia's reputation. That's fair. At least I'll be able to use larger applications of my sacred gear, because Noah's blasts were near instant, Dulio was almost always restricted to using faster and as a result smaller applications of Zenith Tempest, unless he multitasked both the smaller applications while charging up for a large-scale move. However, doing such multitasking for long periods of time hurt his head. While sparing against Lavinia was similar to Noah with her instantaneous ice at the start, it was harder to use his special move because the ice was actually solid, compared to Noah's flames. However, Lavinia's natural stamina prevented her from using such large-scale attacks like they were basic attacks like Noah did, so after the first move, Lavinia switched to smaller but accurate moves, as her accuracy improved during her training. This actually gave Dulio the chance to dodge. Unlike with Noah, it was like trying to survive a flood of flames with just his sacred gear. But with Noah against Lavinia, because it was easier for her to last against the flames due to the contrasting sacred gears, it allowed her to decrease the distance and prevent Noah from spamming his attacks. However, Noah's innate physical ability prevented her ice from hitting him, even if Noah didn't use Furthest Earth. In the end, Dulio's biggest struggle while fighting against Noah was his sacred gear, while Lavinia's was his physical ability. Don't even get started with his second form. While with Noah's sacred gear it actually looked like a fight, with Nephilim of Revelation, it wasn't even a match. They didn't even know all the effects yet. As the three discussed, some ambitious exorcists and clergymen wanted to converse and network with the church's future strongest, but due to Noah most of the time just straight up ignoring them, they didn't even get the opportunity. Dulio gave them an apologetic smile as they left, while Lavinia gave them an indifferent glance. Noah, as the strongest between the three and the ringleader for most of their shenanigans, was their de facto leader. Noah could tell most people's personality due to protection of the faith, so if he didn't feel any trust, then they probably weren't good people. Clout chasers, the lot of them. While this inadvertently put Noah into the young master category, Noah couldn't care less about other people's opinions unless they were actually good people. Well, unless they were born a saint, most of the people walking up to them were trainees who, while taught the word of God, only followed it due to obligation. And because of their teenage, finding good people were even rarer. It was the more older people with more life experience that Noah actually looked towards, are people with genuine faith in God even if they were young. It's been a while. Griselda walked up to the three, and unlike when the three awkwardly looked at the other people who approached them, the three had a more casual expression. I could say the same back, Griselda. Noah held his hand up in greeting. Lavinia gave a happy wave, and Dulio also raised his hand in greeting. Why didn't you tell us about the exhibition match or the tournament? We just found out. Noah started after some small talk about what they did during the time they hadn't met. Quote. You guys didn't know? No, we just found out today. Lavinia responded. I only found out 2 weeks before. How's that my fault? I wasn't even there. Did no one tell you guys? No, Dulio responded, shaking his head from left to right. For real. Plus, this daily chapter is more of a transition, so I can write the 3000 PS chapter easily tomorrow after church, so it's pretty short. Sorry about that. Also, I don't really know if the characters have any personality, so please tell me if there are any issues about that. Plus, we have Power Stone goals. 500 PS extra chapter complete. 800 PS extra chapter complete. 1100 PS extra chapter complete. 1400 PS extra chapter complete. 2100 PS extra chapter complete. 3000 PS extra chapter, writing in progress. 4000 PS extra chapter. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 37 comments 0 vote. Fake it till you make it. Quote. Are you actually going to make this last long? Dulio asked as they made their way to the exhibition match field. For sure. Noah gave a casual nod, which didn't instill any confidence in Dulio at all. Entering the field, they saw a row of seats with all the exorcist trainees and young exorcists who participated in the Holy Sword selection part of the festival along with the veteran exorcists and the higher-ups. They looked like they were going to analyze their competition, but Noah wondered what was even the point, seeing as using sacred gears wasn't even allowed for the tournament. Well, as they say, let them eat cake. Lavinia went to the side with Yuld because she wasn't going to be fighting first. Noah and Dulio went to opposite sides of the field like they always did. Dulio was as tense as always, while Noah was standing like it was just another Tuesday. While Noah had said that he would mock charge his flames for 5 seconds, that still gave Dulio only 5 seconds to create a large-scale water attack in response. If the holy flames burnt his elements, then he would just need a shit ton of volume in response. While Dulio never actually used this in a match with Noah because he didn't have the opportunity, it was one of his more visually striking attacks. Even if there was no water in sight, as one of the biggest bugs in the system, Dulio could create a tsunami with frightening ease. Honestly, Dulio felt like his entire moveset after he met Noah was made to try and counter Incinerate Anthem despite Zenith Tempest being the second strongest Longinus. Sometimes, he even wondered during his spars if there was something wrong with him. As the second strongest Longinus, shouldn't he the one overwhelming Noah? But during his spars it was more of how to stop Noah's attacks to buy time and to counter his Incinerate Anthem. Was this really what Zenith Tempest was meant to be used for? While he was forced to join the church, with so much expectations on Zenith Tempest, even he felt that he should be overpowering Incinerate Anthem. While Cardinal Cristaldi had said that Noah's mastery and scale was unprecedented for Incinerate Anthem and Noah's reassurances that he was just built different, it still felt like Dulio was lacking in some way to keep losing to him. Dulio didn't have qualms using such large-scale attacks because he was confident in the church's ability to create a barrier strong enough to last against it if they had enough time. As the host counted down, Dulio focused up, visualizing the creation of large quantities of water. The moment the round started, a ball of flames appeared in front of Noah, getting larger and larger as seconds passed. As if they timed it on purpose, as Noah released his flood of flames, Dulio countered with a flood of water. As the contrasting elements met in the middle, a wave of steam exploded out of the point of impact, creating a deafening steam explosion. Every exorcist watching that clash felt chills. While some were aware of how powerful a Longinus could actually be, with the statement a weapon that could kill a god for each weapon. However, with only 13 in existence, it was the first time they saw the sheer presence and power of what a sacred gear with the title of Longinus could actually accomplish. And it was humbling. It wasn't on the scale of merely increasing their strength by double, or the creation of swords. It was something that could be considered a natural disaster by itself. Noah clapped his hands together, creating a small opening in the middle, and releasing a streamlined shot of pressurized holy flames. Dulio countered it with his own special move which he was prepping while Noah still had his hands out with the flood of flames. It was the move that he created specifically to counter Noah's first move. Sigillo di Vapor del Giudizio Celeste. Noah and Lavinia both had complained and said that the name was too long, so he just shortened it to Stone Artillery. With practice, he could create multiple at once, as he just needed to get the muscle memory of which element to use at which moment, allowing for consecutive shots. This prompted Noah to physically close the distance. Since he wasn't given a practice sword, taking inspiration from Arthur from Fire Force, Noah had condensed his holy flames into the shape of a sword. While he may not get stronger with his imagination, the condensed holy flames glowed white with how pressurized the flames actually were. Noah, while having a near-infinite amount of gas for Incinerate Anthem, couldn't actually manipulate it to do specific things without putting in similar effort. But even if Noah had a focused expression when condensing his flames, due to his blessing of always clean, even if Noah really was putting in more effort than Dulio was, it always made it seem like Noah wasn't even breaking a sweat. While not a physical advantage, it did affect the enemy mentally, but since Dulio was already aware of Noah's condition, his mental state didn't waver. As Noah approached Dulio's medium-range distance, Dulio created a wave of ice to slow Noah down. While not the freezing phenomena that absolute demise controlled, zenith tempest's control over weather phenomena allowed for unique combinations. Noah waved his free hand to easily melt the ice, but Dulio retaliated with lightning due to the wet field as the ice melted. Noah jumped backward out of the range of the wet ground, and stabbed his sword into the ground. The sword enlarged into a large white glowing crucifix, with the surroundings bathed in holy flames. From the surrounding flames, the Whore of Babylon emerged, and the crucifix floated up. As the Whore of Babylon reached for the holy cross, it stabbed itself into the woman, and from her blood, a grail was formed. Dulio was already thinking of destroying the flame woman the moment he saw her silhouette. He knew from experience that the liquid flames that fell from that grail wasn't like Noah's flood of flames. It was a genuine calamity. The only reason Vasco had even been able to counter the grail was due to Durandal's concept of sharpness, being able to cut through anything along with its blasts of pure destruction. The liquid flames were the purest form of the holy flames, its phenomenon of burning at its greatest, and it multiplied at a rapid rate to a theoretical infinite volume of holy flames, with even greater purity than holy water. Even holy water didn't work on normal humans, but the liquid flames did. The flame woman's weakness was its actual body. Dulio created a barrel with the wind, while using a pointed stone encased with ice as its bullet. Dulio was low-key wondered why he was using the element manipulation part of his sacred gear more than the actual weather manipulation aspect. He glanced at Noah, who was giving him a knowing wink. Unlike Dulio, who found moving while charging for attacks difficult, Noah with his independent avatar-type sacred gear could manifest the holy grail of flames and freely move. But looking at Noah's exaggerated look of concentration as if he was putting in effort to keep the Whore of Babylon maintained, he kind of wanted to punch it. The grail's propagation of liquid flames increased at an exponential rate, so if Dulio could destroy the flame woman before it was uncontrollable, then Noah would probably surrender. This was the plan that the three devised in order to have the highest chance of their food changing. Because Dulio had lost the bet regarding the holy sword selection ceremony, Noah and Lavinia decided to give Dulio the win after a decent fight to increase the chances of his complaint getting accepted. And because Noah could win the youth swordsmanship tournament, and Lavinia wasn't participating in it, Noah would lose both his matches for the exhibition match and win the youth swordsmanship tournament. The three didn't even consider Noah losing. With just 3 months of training, and the cheat that was protection of the faith with just practice swords, Noah could even be on par with Ewald Cristaldi. As the 3 months gave Noah much needed time to get used to instinct and for his learning boosts to fully kick in, it wasn't surprising. But one could say that Ewald's mastery of swordsmanship along with the versatility of the Excaliburs was what made him so strong and considered the current second strongest exorcist. Noah was just relying on his instinct and his learned basics in swordsmanship along with his boosted as fuck stats due to protection of the faith. Well, with just Noah's stats alone he could probably win the youth swordsmanship tournament. Even E-rank stats could compare with Ewald, and against teens. Wasn't even a fair competition. Dulio released his bullet, which pierced the head of the flame woman, and while the cross was the actual weak point, Noah dematerialized the Whore of Babylon for dramatic effect and to hide their abilities' weakness. Noah grasped at his chest and took a step back like he had took a strong blow, convincing enough to even make Dulio think that he had done something serious. While the act could have been called out cause Noah looked fine as always, Noah had a backup plan. Popping a blood capsule in his mouth, Noah hacked up blood. If someone wondered how this capsule was created, it was created by encasing the water created by Dulio with Lavinia's ice, and with just some red food coloring acquired through the kitchen staff, a makeshift blood capsule was created. Noah hid it in his sleeve and put it in his mouth when he bent over to heave. Noah raised his hand to concede cough hack. The host gave a small look of concern before announcing the results. The winner of the exhibition match of Exorcist trainee Dulio and Exorcist trainee Noah is Dulio Gesualdo. As it was an official event, there was just polite claps. Dulio went to Noah and put Noah's arms around his neck while leading him off the field. As they entered the waiting room, Dulio looked to Noah. Quote, Are you actually hurt? Noah gave Dulio a confused expression. You kidding me? His pained expression nowhere to be seen. He wiped his mouth and by turning his head left and right, the purposefully messed up hair went back into place like it was never messed up in the first place. After all this effort and your complaint doesn't go though, I expect a favor. Noah put his hand on Dulio's shoulder. Quote, Yeah, plus, 4,000 is actually fucking crazy. I'll post the 3,000 and 4,000 chapters in 2 days cause tomorrow I'll go outside and come back late. Also, I was rereading my story and I was like, damn, I wasn't funny with the first few chapters at all. I low-key find the first few chapters unreadable if you're rereading it. What made me think I was slick with those shitty jokes? Consider the first few chapters a mistake from inexperience. My first book, cut me some slack. Power Stone goals for next week are kind of unusual, but that's cause I need time after I come back from touching grass to finish the 3,000 PS and 4,000 PS chapters. Plus, we have Power Stone goals, 2,000 PS extra chapter, 2,500 PS extra chapter, 3,000 PS extra chapter, 3,500 PS extra chapter, 4,000 PS extra chapter, and more if it's even possible. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, Power Stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 29 comments 0 vote. No longer human, so when are you going to send the complaint? Noah asked Dulio. Quote, Well, I'm planning to send it right now, before the tournament actually starts. Seeing as the three decided that Noah would win the tournament if he could, it would be better to send out the complaint before. Lavinia nodded in approval. Don't forget to add some food recommendations. Noah and Dulio looked at her with a deadpan. Says the person who eats the fastest. So are you looking forward to fighting anyone? Dulio asked Noah. Unlike Noah, who didn't care for anyone who he didn't already know, Dulio at least made some effort to get some information about their future opponents. Noah shrugged, not particularly hyped about this entire event. I don't really know. What's the point if they're all fodder? Quote, I see. While Noah was one of Dulio's only and best friends, it was hard to believe that Noah even saw others as real, living beings. Sometimes Dulio wondered if Noah was just trying to act cool because of novels or references he didn't know about, but looking at Noah's eyes, it was hard to know if it was him acting, or if he even cared. Remembering back to his apathetic gaze when looking at strangers who walked up to them after the sword selection ceremony and his comments on, looking cool, when walking to Jean, while Dulio would like to point it out, he didn't want to strain the relationship with one of his only friends. And Lavinia mostly followed Noah's actions regarding people, so it wasn't like he could ask Lavinia. The tournament is early tomorrow, right? Noah had to make sure, because unlike the other exorcists where they had temporary accommodations at the Vatican, the Church had decided that the Vatican was close enough to the Institute of Virtue, so instead of staying at the Vatican, they had to take a car all the way back to the training center. A whole 2 hours later, they finally arrived. Yeah, they said they'll pick us up pretty early, Lavinia affirmed. Then let's just sleep early. Noah proposed. Sure, Dulio responded. Should we pray one more time the complaint works? Lavinia added. Quote, Sure, Noah nodded. Plus, did they set this up or something? Noah mumbled, looking at the tournament bracket. It seems like it, Lavinia agreed. Noah and Dulio were on completely opposite sides of the bracket, so if both of them won all their matches, the finals would be once again Noah versus Dulio. That was if they were being optimistic. While Dulio with his Longinus was unmatched amongst his peers with the exception of Noah, being 9 years old against older teens and trainees who only focused on swordsmanship meant that the chances of him losing were much higher. It seems the higher-ups in the church were confident that despite the age gap between the average teen youth exorcists and experienced exorcist trainees that had nothing to do but train in swords would still lose to Dulio and Noah. Such confidence. The youth tournament allowed anyone the age of 17 and under to participate, and the prize that the church gave to the winner was prestige and a medal. Cheap bastards. The weapons that were given were wooden, and the conditions for victory were disarming the opponent, preventing the opponent from moving, or a surrender from the opponent. Excessive harm was prohibited and resulted in disqualification, but if the judges had determined that damage was purposefully taken in order to result in disqualification, it was looked over. That was just breeding grounds for corruption, but who cared? Like always, Noah went into the competition with unwavering confidence. With both physicality and intuition on his side, unless the opponent was cheating, it was near impossible for him to lose. Even then, he still had furthest earth. Not that it was particularly necessary. In order for the tournament to not last the entire day, the preliminaries were done separately until there were 16 people remaining. This meant that there wasn't much of an audience until after Noah had defeated 3 competitors. Well, that's how it was supposed to go, but entering Noah's designated arena, against his chosen opponent, there was a large number of spectators. Noah's opponent looked to be an older male, probably around his teens. In terms of appearance, Noah looked to be significantly smaller in both physique and height. His opponent looked at him with a cocky expression. Why? Noah didn't particularly understand why someone would have so much confidence facing him even if he wasn't using his sacred gear, but Noah just shrugged. He looked at his opponent with a plain expression, holding a wooden sword almost the same size as him in his hand. Seeing as it was the same length of Excalibur, getting used to the sword's length was an easy way for him to be able to use invisible air properly in battle. Regarding the flaming sword, despite the moniker of sword, the handle was around the same length as its blade, so it felt more like a lance, but even with the unusual proportions, the actual weapon handle and all was around 160 centimeters while Excalibur Proto was 130 centimeters, an average bastard sword. It had unusual proportions, so asking for a practice weapon in that style would be weird. He'd wait until he was better with a standard bastard sword first. As the weapon had biblical significance, there was a decently high chance that Gabriel could recognize it, or rather the DxD version of the weapon if it existed. Not that Noah hated Gabriel, but it was already a pain to explain protection of the faith. Not that Noah ever had the opportunity to use the flaming sword in the training institute in the first place. The actual battleground was soundproof, allowing the competitors to converse privately without spectators being able to listen in. Noah's opponent took the opportunity to jab at him. Do you think just because you have a sacred gear, you'll also be good at swordsmanship? He asked. I hope you know I have 6 years of experience over you. He gloated. Wow, people actually say that. Wait, I guess this is an anime world. Noah trailed off, mumbling the last part. The opponent's expression darkened. Just as his opponent registered what Noah had said, the countdown finished, and Noah cocked his sword-holding arm back. Noah's blessings bestowed through protection of the faith just in combat were numerous, having over 1,000 blessings regarding combat alone. While he already had general large-scope blessings like increased flexibility, the longer he trained in swordsmanship, the more specific the blessings were. A normal increased flexibility could be boosted through wordplay and conditionals. Increased flexibility while holding a sword. Increased flexibility while holding a bladed weapon. Increased flexibility while holding a bladed weapon during the day. Increased flexibility while holding a bladed weapon during the day wearing predominantly white clothing. Increased flexibility while holding a bladed weapon in right hand during the day wearing predominantly white clothing. Increased flexibility while holding a bladed weapon in right hand during the day wearing predominantly white clothing against older entities. A simple increased flexibility could theoretically be stacked infinitely. And with 6 months to stack a large number of blessings through protection of the faith, even if the blessings were weaker the more specific they were, with such large number of blessings generated each day, Noah was constantly growing. Noah moved one step forward, exhibiting his core strength and flexibility by matrix ducking a slash and using his naturally smaller physique to go between his enemy's legs, hitting the back of their knees in the process. As the opponent grunted in pain and fell to his knees, Noah turned around and kicked him in the back, using it as leverage to launch himself into the air, hitting an unnecessary backflip and holding his sword in a reverse grip, landing on his opponent, who was laying flat out. Stabbing his practice sword next to his opponent's head, the guy froze at the near-death experience. So are you going to surrender? Noah said with his characteristic carefree voice. As if he never considered his opponent as a threat in the first place. Such a nonchalant tone despite threatening him caused cold sweat to build up on the teen. The teen turned his head to Noah's face, locking eye contact with Noah's expression. Despite the youthful face, it looked as if Noah's eyes didn't even consider him as a real living being. Like he was in the line of sight of a man who only saw his life as a game or even a story. Chills ran down the teen's back as he rapidly nodded. What kind of courage did he have when the match started to jab at this kid? Was he really human? To surrender, he yelled with desperate fervor. Who cared if he lost to a child if he didn't even see him as human? Noah looked to the judges, who nodded. Noah nodded satisfactorily and got off his opponent and walked out of the arena without looking back at his opponent. Well, that was unsurprisingly easy. It seems his time at the training institute wasn't for naught. Noah had expected an achievement, seeing as he had an achievement for his friends, but it seems the system hadn't deemed his opponent important enough. Well, it wasn't like he was going to be friends with every important person that comes up. All he really needed is his current friends. And maybe Gabriel. Plus, it seems that his dependence on protection of the faith increased. If you're wondering about Lavinia, it's cause it was before he depended more on protection of the faith in his current situation. Noah's had no real connections till now, so he isn't experienced using that trust he feels when seeing the criteria by protection of the faith all the time to create connections isn't good, but who knows? Character development. This is the first time that Noah is around a lot of people and interacts with them more than just trying to scam shit off them. I deleted the announcement. Also, my grandma's fine. She just tripped and cracked a bone. While yeah, it's serious, it ain't as serious as death. But I had to celebrate a birthday soon after. Was going to update TMR, but with so little novels that interest me right now, just decided to write instead. Still got 2 extra chaps from last week to write too. Plus, we have Power Stone goals. 2000 PS extra chapter. 2500 PS extra chapter. 3000 PS extra chapter. 3500 PS extra chapter. 4000 PS extra chapter. And more if it's even possible. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 PM to 6 PM KST, cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 PM to 2 AM KST, cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 21 comments, 0 vote. Revolution. After easily defeating his 3 opponents like they were ants on the road, Noah made his way back to Lavinia. Hey Noah, I think the church really did set up the youth tournament. In Lavinia's hands was a piece of paper. She handed it to Noah. While Lavinia would have went to watch Noah's matches, seeing as he would probably finish in record time, she took the opportunity to look further into Noah's offhanded remark about the tournament brackets. As Noah read the paper, he realized what Lavinia was trying to say. It seemed that a majority of the people who were chosen by Holy Swords were in their own separate blocks and didn't have other stronger opponents in that specific block. While Lavinia didn't know much about the church's politics, it was pretty sad to see the church rigging even a youth tournament. Will her wish of preventing children from being abandoned be ruined by the church as well? It would be pretty disappointing if it did. Noah hummed. He understood the crux of Lavinia's worries for the future. Well, if worse comes to worst, I could probably just kill all the corrupt ones. Noah casually said with a shrug. That was not what I expected to hear when I finished my matches. Walking from a distance to Noah and Lavinia was Griselda, who gave Noah a weird expression. Just an offhanded thought. Griselda gave Noah a look. Sounds less like an offhanded thought and more of an intrusive thought. The world just can't accept my greatness. Noah brushed his hand through his hair in an exaggerated manner, getting deadpans from the 2 girls. So did you win your 3 opponents as well? Noah asked Griselda, changing the subject. While Griselda was older than Noah and Lavinia, she still held a physical disadvantage against her opponents, as despite outliers like Noah and Dulio, the average age of the youth participating were from 15-17. Griselda nodded. It was easier than I thought it would be. Noah passed Lavinia's sheet over to Griselda, who looked at Noah with a questioning expression. Just look at it. Noah nodded toward the sheet. Griselda gave Lavinia's paper a once-over, before frowning. No wonder. Despite most of the competitors being male, making up over 70% of the tournament, all 3 of her opponents were female. With 128 competitors, Griselda neither had the time or could be bothered to research her opponents. The most she did was look at her first opponent. Mainly cause the prize wasn't anything to aim for. Despite only being 14, she had a wide range of connections and was generally respected as a female exorcist. She only applied because she wanted to clash blades with older exorcists and gain some experience. In a sense, she just wanted to widen her horizons, as this was the first youth swordsmanship tournament the Vatican hosted in a while. Now knowing that her matches were made easier, a feeling of disappointment arose. Yep, Noah sighed. It seems that politics are once more in the way of piety. Not that Noah was particularly religious, but with the supernatural being real in this world, it was easier to accept events from the Bible actually being true. He had an angel friend to talk to, for God's sake. Griselda reluctantly agreed. The church and exorcist system primarily gave way to three large aspects of an exorcist or higher clergy: political power, physical power, and public piety. Most of the church's decisions are done by people who have a large amount of political power. However, with one added-on aspect such as physical power and public piety, even if one's political power was less than some, physical power and public piety made up for it. Vasco Strada is a good example with someone with a lot of political power, but his reputation in both physical power and public piety allowed him much more unspoken authority and respect amongst his fellow cardinal priests, more specifically regarding exorcists. However, despite being the person with the highest overall stats in all three aspects, he was only one person. So while Vasco could wield unparalleled authority regarding some aspects of the exorcists, there were some blind spots he couldn't have full authority over. Purely political events such as the sword selection ceremony was one of them. The three Longinus wielders, Noah, Lavinia, and Dulio, all had high stats regarding physical power, but because they weren't allowed greenlit to go out yet, their political power and public piety were practically non-existent. Well, if Noah revealed his friendship with Gabriel, both his political power and public piety would drastically increase, not that Noah would do it without Gabriel's permission. Noah didn't really know why angels didn't really do anything about the church's corruption issues. Now in front of a prime example of corruption, it popped up in his mind. Only being in a training institute really made him forget. Maybe he should ask Gabriel next time. Is that why you made that offhanded comment? Seeing as Griselda only heard Noah's statement about killing all the corrupt ones without context, it wasn't surprising that Griselda gave Noah a weird expression. Noah nodded. Yeep. Also why I debated whether to join the church or not. That made Griselda's eyebrow rise. Wasn't it because they wouldn't give you anything? Oh, well, that too, of course. That got a deadpan from Griselda. Their conversation was interrupted by an approaching Dulio. What were you guys talking about? Killing the corrupt, Noah responded, an accompanying reluctant nod by both Griselda and Lavinia. Without context, it sure sounded bad. What? Was Noah finally going insane? But Griselda and Lavinia both nodded. Noah looked toward Griselda and nodded at the paper in her hands. Getting the memo, Griselda held out the paper to Dulio. Receiving the paper, Dulio read the contents, and reminiscent of Griselda's reaction, slowly frowned as he read more. No wonder. Were your matches easy as well? Lavinia asked. Dulio nodded. My opponents were way younger than I thought they would be. He wasn't aiming to win either, but for an entirely different reason. Aiming higher meant a higher chance of the complaint going through. While he was a little relieved that it was easier, knowing that the church did it on purpose kind of poked at his pride. Well, it seems the difficulty would spike at the round of 16. Noah noted. While holy sword wielders did get an easier time in the tournament, natural holy sword wielders were still extremely rare. The other three nodded. Well, I still don't think I would lose, what about y'all? I might have some difficulty against David Serro. Griselda admitted her next opponent at the round of 16 would probably be the new wielder of Excalibur Galatine. Not only was he older than Griselda, he had 4 years of experience against the supernatural, while Griselda was only approaching a year. Who? Noah asked. It sounded familiar but he couldn't put a face to the name. The guy you stole from me for the holy sword selection ceremony. Lavinia added. Oh, that guy, I remember him. Noah trailed off. Are you sure? Dulio asked, not convinced in the slightest. Wait, what do you mean by stole from me? Griselda interrupted. Lavinia quickly explained the bet the three had to her, getting an exasperated expression from Griselda. While she kind of expected such behavior from Noah and Lavinia, even Dulio participated. Their conversation trailed off when a sister approached, informing them the preliminaries were nearly over. It was time to head to the same field used for the exhibition match. Plus, the 3000 PS bonus chap from last week if I remember. This is super short because I didn't wanna write the tourna as well today. Well, the tournament is probably going to last 1 or 2 more chapters since this entire arc was supposed to be an interlude to my actual first arc. Super sorry for this short stack of a chapter. Low-key glad I kind of took a longer break than expected. Kinda wanted to post tomorrow to prevent a possible 2000 PS before the week ended, but didn't want a super long hiatus. Plus, we have Power Stone goals, 2000 PS extra chapter, 2500 PS extra chapter, 3000 PS extra chapter, 3500 PS extra chapter, 4000 PS extra chapter, and more if it's even possible. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 PM to 6 PM KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 PM to 2 AM KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 25 comments 0 vote. 7 minutes. Do you really think your sacred gear translates to actual swordsmanship? You're merely a child playing house. Noah looked at his opponent. You know, someone said almost the exact same thing earlier today. Noah commented, his expression, as if everything was merely a game. They lost. His opponent frowned. Noah juggled his wooden sword, creating flashy and clean movements as it spun in circles around him. The opponent clenched his teeth in annoyance. He had heard from his peers that the child in front of him moved as soon as the countdown completed with an agility reaching the limit of human speed. This was Noah downplaying his E-rank agility. Well, with all his conditional blessings it was more like E+ agility. His opponent assumed that Noah only won because of cheap tricks, being able to move that fast at such a young age. So with the confidence that as long as he could match his first move that victory was in sight, he was tense for Noah's first move. As the countdown reached 0, Noah's opponent clenched the handle of his sword, ready to swing at Noah as soon as the match started. Mind you, despite only being human, with education spanning from their childhood, most on-field exorcists had physical capabilities beyond what was expected of a human. Even Griselda, despite only being 14, could probably outrun Usain Bolt even if for a short while. Like all of his previous matches, Noah sped toward his opponent, not planning to drag it out. While dragging out a battle might have its own appeal, there was a romance in defeating every opponent soon after the match started. Instead of going through the legs, Noah decided to do something else. Holding his wooden bastard sword with 2 hands for the first time, Noah readied it for a diagonal from bottom left to upper right swing, countering his opponent's downward swing. Furthermore, when he first had a thought for what he should do this match, a corresponding blessing appeared. Increased chances of weapon destruction. As the conditional derivative blessings were bestowed, Noah thought, fuck it we ball. As the wooden swords clashed, Noah aimed for the weakest point in most swords, the flat. This was technically impossible to do from the angle Noah was standing, so Noah took the liberty to cheat physics though furthest earth, removing all of his momentum in an instant and moving horizontally a little to the left. The distance moved was minuscule, but the actual move was virtually impossible to do with just physical ability due to the instant change in direction due to momentum. However, furthest Earth's domain of perfect movement also meant that momentum and direction was never an issue. Noah increased the strength of his swing at the last moment, cleaving through his opponent's sword like a hot knife on butter. Before his opponent could even register what happened, Noah redirected his swing back to his neck, stopping mere millimeters before it hit the skin, the gust of wind blasting his opponent's hair to one side. Surrender. Noah tilted his head. It wasn't a question. While his opponent losing his weapon automatically meant it was his victory, it was more satisfying this way. His opponent froze at the loss of his blade, only grasping onto the handle hard enough for the wood to creak. He looked at Noah's unchanged expression. When he had heard from his peers that the wielder of Incinerate Anthem wasn't human, he had waved it off. What were they so scared of? A mere child. But looking at Noah's face of complete disregard, as if looking at a boring toy, a wave of dissonance permeated his entire being. His look felt wrong. As if he had bestowed judgment upon him, having already judged his worth and deemed it worthless. It took all his effort not to fall to his knees. He grit his teeth in humiliation, but the further he got away from this monster child, the better. To surrender. Noah removed the blade away from his opponent's neck. Even though the sword was only made of wood, it had an aura of a razor-sharp edge. Waving toward his friends, he made his way toward them without any other words to his opponent, like he didn't deserve an ounce of respect. Without any traits of good and faith in the jealousy-filled youth, he wasn't anyone Noah could care about. Just a random character he would have nothing to do with. Plus, as the matches continued for the round of 16, because Dulio and Griselda were on the opposite side of the bracket, they could only meet Noah at the finals. Unfortunately, Griselda lost to David Serro, as well as Dulio. While they both put up a decent fight, with the natural disadvantage and physique and actual combat experience, it was difficult for Griselda to overcome, even more so Dulio, as he was younger than Griselda. Noah, who seemed to only have been matched up with absolute NPCs who could only spout the same lines, easily made his way to the finals. David Serro, the newest wielder of Excalibur Galatine, was ecstatic. While his mood dropped when he was ignored by the three Longinus wielders the previous day, defeating Dulio Gesualdo in a battle of swordsmanship increased his mood. Noah didn't really know why the dude was so happy shitting on a 9-year-old when he was like 17, but to each their own. However, David didn't underestimate Noah. Rather, it would be idiotic to underestimate him when he had literally been smoking every single one of his peers without even a hint of fatigue. When David had witnessed Noah defeat his opponent through Furthest Earth, his eyes widened. While David didn't know about Furthest Earth's existence, the ability to suddenly change direction allowed for countless more opportunities. While changing direction normally came with losing momentum, Noah's physical abilities nullified such issues. Even David's mentor had commented on Noah's unnatural movement that practically broke the laws of natural physics. If Noah could do such things without any strain on his body, it meant that victory would be extremely difficult to achieve. So while David was strategizing on how to defeat Noah before the match started, Noah didn't even consider him an opponent. Instead, he was taking bets. Taking bets, over or under 1 minute. "We have nothing to bet, Noah," Dulio said dryly. Quote, "Our future salary," Noah proposed. "You'd just rig the bet." Griselda countered, and Lavinia nodded in agreement. "Do I look like that kind of person?" Noah joked, wiping off non-existent tears from his eyes. "Yes," the three said in unison. "Damn," Noah shrugged. He had done the same bet just the match before, so it wasn't surprising. He looked toward Dulio and Griselda like a soldier going off to war. "Well, Dulio and Griselda, I'll avenge you too." As the time in between matches dwindled, Noah gave a wave to his fans, and made his way to the finals with a relaxed deposition. Plus 7 minutes. Since this was the finals, talking more than a sentence would probably be fine. What? David looked confused at the sudden voice. After all, for all the matches that Noah fought, he never spoke first, only rarely responding to the opponent's taunts. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you. Noah held his sword with a relaxed grip, swinging it around haphazardly. Quote, "Are you mocking me? Well, with my current record, I'm actually complimenting you." Noah reasoned. None of his opponents lasted more than a minute, so saying that 7 minutes is all he had was a compliment, right? David grit his teeth. He didn't know why, but every word that Noah spoke sounded like the biggest insults to him. It was as if his mental was deteriorating in record time. David didn't know this, but it was once more because of protection of the faith. Increased mental destabilization ability. Increased taunting ability. "I hope you know I've already defeated the wielder of Zenith." "Without Zenith Tempest," Noah interrupted. "All you did was beat a 9-year-old with swords and bragging about it." Noah raised an eyebrow. "Did you have fun? Did you get everything out of your system?" David glared at Noah, but didn't say anything. He was already doing his best to not rush at him immediately. Is beating a kid whose main ability sealed off that much of an accomplishment? But Noah continued his tirade. "You're almost like double his age, man, grow up." The countdown started to decrease, but Noah didn't stop there. "I don't know what you're so proud of. What holy sword did you get again?" "Gelatin. What sword did I get?" Oh, I remember. Excalibur. Well, not that the Excaliburs are strong anyway. Noah shrugged in resignation as if David's accomplishments were nothing to him. Your jello of a sword can't even compare to a single Longinus, ha. Noah shook his head as if he said a funny joke. Then his small chuckle increased to full-blown chortle. David's expression darkened. Even if Noah surrendered, he would show no mercy. A small part of his mind kept trying to remind him of what his mentor said about Noah, but something was blocking his ability to critically think. He was better than his peers. His physique was superior, and he was even a natural holy sword wielder. As the countdown reached 0, instead of waiting for Noah to run towards him, David immediately moved to the side. This was solely due to his instinct, not intellect. David glanced back to his original position to see Noah rapidly approaching him. While Noah's speed was impressive for his age, David was confident in his physical ability. Watching Noah's previous matches, it felt like he could outspeed Noah. David probed with a light slash to Noah's left shoulder. The height difference made it difficult to aim for Noah's torso or legs. Noah casually tilted his sword so David's blade harmlessly slid against his edge, and hitting a counter-attack at his exposed torso. The wooden sword slammed into David's torso and he winced at the unexpected pain, his breathing going out of rhythm. Taking the opportunity, Noah brought back his sword and stabbed towards David's abs, and instead of David crumpling at the jab, due to his unnatural durability, he was launched back instead. Noah followed. As Noah raised his sword for an overhead slash, David instinctually rose his sword to block it, only to realize that it was a feint and quickly changed directions, only to realize late that Noah juked him out twice, Noah's real slash hitting him in the side of his torso, where he just hit in the beginning. David let out a grunt of pain. He couldn't keep staying on the defensive, and decided to go forward instead of backward, rushing at Noah. Even though Noah may be fast and strong, his durability could only be so strong. Noah didn't panic, using his smaller stature and superior agility to get into David's blind spot when he got closer and get behind him, and reminiscent of his first match, swung towards David's exposed knees, dropping David to his knees. David swung blindly behind him, trying to roll away, but Noah's blade intercepted mid-swing, sapping its force before it could even properly generate. Before David could do anything, Noah reached toward David's exposed wrist, grabbing it and dragging it toward himself, disarming David. Instead of finishing it there, Noah used that opportunity to do a kick against David's back, pressing him to the ground. David attempted a roll to get out of the way, but Noah was just too fast, catching up with the roll. To prevent David from moving further, Noah used his own sword and the stolen sword to trap David's neck in an X shape using the blades. Now David was stuck laying down, back to the ground, his neck in a precarious location. Having been in precarious positions, and the fact that it was only a friendly competition, unlike the unexperienced, he didn't have a fear of death just from the wooden swords. However, when he gazed into the abyss that was Noah's unchanged expression, he froze. Noah looked just as pristine as he did walking into the arena, no sweat, no grime, no heavy breathing. As if he was a character in a game that never changed. Barely a minute passed, with the same tone that Noah first insulted David with, yet instead of instigating David, with the match completed, there was only a sense of incongruity. Why was he so stressed in the first place? While David grew mentally from this experience, Noah's was unnaturally stagnant. You have defeated the wielder of Excalibur Galatine, David Sarro. You have obtained the achievement Closer to Gawain +1 free pull. Only one pull? I guess this person wasn't as important as I thought. How disappointing. +AN. After this I'll still do Power Stone goals, but it'll be much harder and there's a limit. Also, this arc is mainly meant to show Noah's personality further from his original start, cause I can just explain Noah's Jen's jokes as something that comes from changing world settings so suddenly, and no rewrite needed. Still need to write the 4000 extra chapter and the new 2000 extra chapter. Still going to update daily though, no need to worry. Plus, new Power Stone goals starting this week. 2500 PS extra chap. 3500 PS extra chap. 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. My parents don't mind me writing, but they kind of want me to make money, so I'm going to try and set up a Patreon soon, and I need time to fill that shit up. Do people really buy Patreons though? Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 27 comments 0 vote. True magic? Nah. Paper. Have you heard? Lavinia asked Noah while they were eating dinner a few months after the Holy Sword Compatibility Selection Festival, actually eating decent food. Well, at least good food for the times at least. Thankfully, Dulio's complaint had gone through, and their slop was replaced with food with much more flavor. Quote. What? And where are you even getting this information? Noah asked Lavinia. Wasn't the tutors not supposed to be discussing personal information to them? I heard it from my magic tutor. She's kind of talkative when you start complimenting her. She said that after I master short-range teleportation there's a high chance we'll go on a field exercise outside of the church. Now that they left the Institute of Virtue for the festival, getting even a small taste of outside, Lavinia wanted to leave the training institute and see more of the world. Having stayed in the same building for 6 months for a child like Lavinia would obviously feel like a prison. Noah, being a natural homebody, didn't particularly feel anything different. However, Dulio had the same sentiments as Lavinia, even more so as he had now been here for 2 years, only leaving for the festival. Really, Dulio had fallen into a more relaxed routine after the addition of Noah and Lavinia. With expectations spread amongst the three of them, he had less pressure to be as good as the higher-ups expected him to be when he was first brought into the church. While his purpose for the past year and a half suddenly changed, the more he interacted with Noah, the less he started to care about trying to be better than Noah. Dulio couldn't even beat Noah when Noah was just using his Incinerate anthem. While the matches got closer and closer, Dulio attributed that closing gap solely due to the limitations of Noah's sacred gear. The fact that Noah's Incinerate anthem was overpowering Zenith Tempest in general was something that was wrong. In terms of physical ability, Dulio was behind, and Dulio could tell that Noah had much more power hidden than just his movement and his Excalibur. While Dulio was more socially adept and was decent in his education, it felt like Noah wasn't taking any of that seriously at all. Noah's unserious demeanor didn't assist with that train of thought either. While Lavinia knew from the beginning that Noah was stronger than she could ever be, resulting in a thinking of just wanting to support him as something similar to equals or supporting Noah's weaknesses, Dulio had the original thought before the spars that he was supposed to be superior solely due to the difference in weaponry. Well, while it seemed like Noah had an unchanging unserious demeanor sometimes, there were moments of sudden sadness, like what happened last month. While Dulio and Lavinia were concerned, Noah said it wasn't anything serious. Well, Dulio remembered that night Noah brought out both himself and Lavinia, who were in their own rooms, for some snacks that somehow appeared. Those were pretty good though. Let's go back a month. Plus, Noah had taken the opportunity to save up 50 free pulls to get a specialized character, and after some thinking, decided that the most overpowered thing he could probably obtain from the Fate universe was true magic. So, with his limited knowledge of the Fate universe, reduced the possible candidates to Zelrech, Justice, and Ayoko. He hadn't actually known much about them, but he was curious about them after reading some fanfiction, so he was aware of their existences. Well, he knew there was a wielder of first magic but forgot their name. Started with AY, at the very least. After deciding on Zelrech, he had invested his 50 free pulls, but what returned was blueprints of the jeweled sword Zelrech X rank. While he was originally excited at the X rank, as it was only the blueprints, Noah had absolutely no idea where to start. After looking at the blueprint for about a day and making zero progress, he gave up. The blueprint itself being X rank meant that the sword was absolutely broken, but with no knowledge of jewelmage craft and even the second magic, Noah was stumped. Unfortunately, developing the jeweled sword Zelrech was a long-term project, if it ever was completed. That was the main reason behind Noah's sadness that day. He had 250 points saved up for the stat point and craft essence pulls, meaning he could pull 25 times to make up for that disappointment by deciding to use all 25 pulls. Who cared if most of the craft essences were useless? He needed to get at least 50 stats to get the full benefits of the stat boost from Protection of the Faith. So while laying down on his bed that day, started pulling. Stat point small plus 0.1 agility. Next, craft essence Mark of the Heavenly Meteor. With no one around, Noah could take the time to look at what he got from the pull, which in this case was a horseshoe. After inspecting it and knocking on it to make sure it wasn't fake metal, into the inventory it went. Next, stat point small plus 0.1 agility. Next, stat point large plus 10 strength. That was pretty good. Next, craft essence you can be a dragon too. Set. A plastic bag appeared, and Noah quickly catched it. Inspecting the packaging, there was Siegfried on the package. Next to it was a small drawing of what the product entailed. A horn headband, a wing backpack, and an attachable dragon tail. With how much God hated dragons, it'd be pretty funny if he gifted the outfit to him. The craft essence was probably from Siegfried, seeing as he was on the damn package. Now this is the appeal of gambling. Even if it's random shit like this, it's pretty interesting and fun. Next, craft essence heroic spirit dream portrait, Charlotte Corday. A picture of a brown-haired blue-eyed woman in a yukata. The name was unfamiliar, but she looked pretty cute. Much better than Billy the Kid. Next, craft essence express card, S. Bunyan Advent. Another picture frame appeared, but with the FGO April Fool's style art. While all the characters here were completely unfamiliar, they looked pretty cute. Next, craft essence sweet tooth sparrow's wansanbon. A tray of a Japanese tea kettle, cup, and a plate of what looked like sparrow-shaped sweets materialized, with one large sweet that looked like a building. Since the cup was already filled with a liquid, probably tea, Noah took a small sip and frowned. Matcha. While he knew that some people liked the taste of matcha, Noah personally thought it tasted like grass. But the actual tray and plates were pretty, and he'd leave the sweets for Lavinia and Dulio. Now that he thought about it, it had been a while since he'd actually pulled craft essences, so it had been a while since Lavinia was able to eat sweets. Maybe Dulio would appreciate the sweets as well. Next, stat point small plus 0.1 agility. While getting agility and stats was something to celebrate, it felt like all he was getting was a little bit of agility each time. Next, craft essence my first gift. A beige jacket along with a hairpin made of gold with emerald inlays appeared in his hands. Noah held it up. The Aztec-esque snake meant it was probably from a servant from that area. Noah really only remembered Quetzalcoatl. Who was it from? Kukulkan. Yep, he had no idea who that was. But Noah did like the design, even if it didn't really fit his style. Not that he even had a style. All he really wore was the church training garb recently. But it was still pretty nice. Next, stat point medium plus 1 endurance. That was good. So far, his highest stats were strength and agility. Luck was so much of an outlier that it felt weird to include. Next, 3 magic circuits of C-rank quality plus 3.00 mana. Ah fuck, wait, the pain wasn't actually that bad. Protection of the Faith has increased pain resistance. Oh yeah, next, craft essence extremely spicy Mapo tofu. Instead of what Noah had expected, which was just a plate of Mapo tofu, an entire mini table with Mapo tofu materialized, along with a blue and white tea set. Noah caught it, before setting it down. So this is the fabled Kotamine Kirei's favorite Mapo tofu. Noah held up the plate and inspected the meal. The sauce was blood red, and emanated pure spice. Noah took a sniff of the Mapo tofu and teared up, like he had taken a sniff of smelling salts, recoiling. What the fuck? Protection of the Faith generates spice resistance. It's that fucking spicy. Noah inspected it once more. Since he had spice resistance, maybe it wouldn't be that spicy. He took the spoon and took a bite. A burst of flavor appeared in his mouth. Even with spice resistance there was still a lingering feeling of spice in his mouth. How the fuck was this even possible? Noah winced at the spice that transcended God's blessing. However, even despite the spice, it tasted so fucking heavenly that he couldn't stop, taking more bites, ignoring the warm tea that came with the Mapo tofu. Even after Noah completed the extremely spicy Mapo tofu, there was a lingering spice in his mouth, and Noah used his breathing technique to try and get rid of the spice. Damn, that tasted fire. Noah looked at the cleared plate with a wistful expression. Maybe Kotamine Kirei had good taste after all. Next, craft essence commentari de Bello Gallico. A book materialized. Noah inspected the book. Even though the title was in Latin, Noah could tell what it said due to Noah's physique. Commentaries on the Gallic War, Noah wasn't much for history. Into the inventory it went. Next, craft essence heroic spirit event attire, Draco. A light blue dress appeared, with a blue ribbon to match. It was accompanied with a small green bear-shaped purse with a black fluff ball of a charm. Noah inspected the dress, but there seemed to be a large hole in the back of the dress, like there was something that was supposed to go there. Draco has a tail. That made sense. It seems this'll be useless. Into the inventory. Next, craft essence bitter pitch black. A chocolate heart that was as tall as Noah's waist appeared. Stabbed into it was a familiar spear. Is that fucking guy Bolg? Inspecting the name on the chocolate heart, the name Scathach was written. Well, that made sense. Noah removed the spear that was stabbed into the large chocolate heart. Is this the actual noble phantasm of Scathach or just a replica? If he remembered correctly, Scathach had 2 of these spears. Guy Bolg alternative soaring spear that strikes with death B+ rank. Oh damn, it was the actual noble phantasm. What does soaring spear that strikes with death mean? It doesn't aim for the heart. It's the anti-army variant. Oh damn. So it was like that one large strike that Lancer shot at Emiya which he blocked with raw eyes. Yes. Well, that wasn't bad in any way. If this could destroy 6 of Ro Ias's petals, then it was a good spear. Possibly the best throwable weapon he had now. But damn, was it tall as fuck. Noah tried to hold it up straight, but it was taller than the ceiling in his room. God damn. Well, he got an unexpected boon from what he expected to just be a replica. Thank you, Scathach. Noah gave a small bow to the chocolate heart that had Scathach written on it. Noah kind of wondered if Scathach also existed in DxD, because wasn't she supposed to be alive in the land of shadows right now? Well, even if she was, there was no chance of her leaving, so no need to worry about it, right? But if the underworld also included the land of shadows, done Skaith, well, there wasn't any reason for Noah to ever go to the underworld anyways. Next, craft essence Maxim de Chevalier. A small silver container appeared, with 6 small pieces of heart-shaped chocolate inside. 2 Valentine's Day chocolates. It was kind of ironic that his first ever Valentine's Day chocolates came from a gacha. If he wasn't mistaken, it was Japanese culture for women to give it to men, so maybe it wasn't his fault as an American. Next, craft essence Jewel Bride. A snow globe as large as Noah's head appeared in his hands. While the weight was negligible, it still surprised him. Noah looked through the glass of the snow globe to see a figurine of Bride Nero. It's the UMU girl. Noah made sure that the girl didn't start moving. After verifying that it was static, Noah inspected the inside of the snow globe, where it looked like Nero was trapped inside, with a small cake and candles inside. The craftsmanship was truly exquisite. Nero was one of his favorite characters from Fate. After shaking it around a little more, Noah put it into his inventory. If he ever bought a house, maybe he would put up all these trinkets that he got from this gacha someday. Next, craft essence Heroic Spirit Tour, Artoria Caster. A picture frame materialized in Noah's hands. Well, the face was pretty recognizable. Despite not going all the way to the British Lost Belt, he had read up on the characters at the very least. Not only that, he was pretty knowledgeable about a majority of the Saberfaces. Why, you ask? Don't ask. Well, at least he had a photo of Kasoria. Next. Stat point small plus 0.1 durability. Finally a stat point. It was durability as well, which was his lowest stat for now. Next. Stat point small plus 0.1 strength. Pretty good. His main purpose in doing these pulls was mainly for stats too, so the more stat points the better. Next. Stat point small plus 0.1 strength. Next. Stat point medium plus 1 agility. Nice. Well, with Furthest Earth this stat was pretty useless in real-world applications, but during sparring, sure. Next. Craft Essence Angel's Song. Another picture frame materialized in Noah's hands. First it was Kasoria, now it was Irisfeel. Well, best Einspurn hands down, so it wasn't anything unsatisfying other than being just a photo. If he hung up all these photos on the wall and Dulio walked in confused, it'd be pretty funny. How many more points does he even have left? 20. Oh, so 2 more pulls, that was less than he had expected. Next, Craft Essence Heroic Spirit Tour, Yang Guifei. Once again, a picture frame materialized in Noah's hands. The name was unfamiliar, but the woman in the photo looked pretty hot. Was that the fucking Great Wall of China in the background? Yes. Oh, so that was what it meant by Heroic Spirit Tour. That made so much more sense. Noah took out Kasoria's Heroic Spirit Tour and looked at the background. Now where the hell was this? Hohensalzburg Fortress, Salzburg. Damn, Noah had no idea where the fuck that was. Austria. Ah, the originator of the Austrian painter. Maybe he'd get the chance to visit it during his future missions. Noah put both picture frames into his inventory. Last one. Craft Essence Holy Night Dinner. A picture frame materialized in Noah's hands. Damn, another fucking picture frame. Noah swore to God he had like 5 of those already, holy shit. Was that his Queen Jalter? That was actually Jalter. Let's fucking go. This was truly a work of art. With no idea if Kanoko Nasu even existed in this universe, this picture might be the only drawing of Gene Alter in this world. While Noah was a little disappointed that he didn't get as much stat increases as he expected, most of the photos were pretty recognizable along with the Nero snow globe. Also, the unexpected boon of Guy Bolg alternative wasn't anything to scoff at either. Noah hadn't expected a noble phantasm to come out of a craft essence. The Mapo tofu was also pretty good. While the food that the church served now was leagues better than it was previously, they didn't serve spicy food, which was unfortunate. It had been a while since Noah had been able to eat spicy food too. Damn, he wanted another bite, he should have saved some. Well, with his newly acquired snacks, might as well eat it with his friends. Not the unrealistic table-sized scathach chocolate, but the wansanbon was fair game. Plus, this is a hell of a filler, but if some people were curious about some of the pulls, here you go. I was busy so couldn't really think of a good transition to the new arc. Actual plot starting tomorrow. Also, Noah's theory about Scathach being in the underworld. It's true, since Scathach isn't actually in DxD, it's the Fate appearance. No idea if they're ever going to meet though. By the way, every character that probably has a Fate counterpart like Ereshkigal also looks like the one in Fate. Can't be bothered to make appearances up. Plus, new Power Stone goals starting this week. 2,500 PS extra chap. 3,500 PS extra chap. 4,500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. My parents don't mind me writing, but they kind of want me to make money, so I'm going to try and set up a Patreon soon, and I need time to fill that shit up. Do people really buy Patreons though? Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST, cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST, cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, Power Stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 21 comments, 0 vote. Say my name. We're actually getting to go outside. Noah asked incredulously at Ewald, who made an announcement after their daily combat lessons. While Noah had heard about Lavinia saying that they would probably be able to go on a field exercise, Noah didn't actually expect this to happen the very next day. Lavinia hadn't even mastered short-range teleportation. Quote. Yes, while I believe this is too hasty, in light of your recent progress in your training, the higher-ups have allowed for a field exercise, where the 3 of you will be accompanying a 2-man cell of veteran exorcists on a mission. Quote. For real? Noah asked once more. Ewald sighed. Please let me finish. My bad. Noah raised a hand in surrender. Continue. This field exercise will take place in Austria. Before Noah could make another joke, Ewald gave Lavinia and Dulio a pointed look, in which they blocked Noah's mouth. The presumed enemies are only a small group of fallen angels with 1 pair of wings. The trio nodded. Also, while I did say that you 3 will be accompanying 2 veteran exorcists, in essence they will be your observers to determine if the 3 of you are prepared to be greenlit for missions. Now that was some news. Even if the 3 were all 10 years old, with the firepower of a Longinus, they were much stronger than a majority of the experienced exorcists under the jurisdiction of the church. Noah, while a natural homebody, also had somewhat of a desire to travel around the world, just for fun. Rather, wasn't that desire rather normal or tame? This field exercise will take place in exactly 1 week from now. The rest of the briefing will take place on the day of the exercise. Now you can ask questions. Now that got the 3 going. Will we know the veteran exorcists accompanying us, and will we be able to ask them for assistance? Dulio, cautious for his first time in actual combat, mainly asked this question, mainly due to his underestimation of himself. This was mainly due to his main sparring partners when using Zenith Tempest was either Ewald, Vasco, Noah, or Lavinia. Two of them were the peak of church exorcists, and the other were wielders of Longinus. Only sparring with people against people who were close or above him in combat, despite knowing that Zenith Tempest was the second strongest Longinus, led Dulio to develop an underestimation of his own abilities as a result. But with no one to spar with Zenith Tempest except those four, this mentality couldn't be easily fixed in such an environment. No, you three will not be familiar with the two veteran exorcists. If your question is if Sister Quarta is one of the exorcists, I will have to disappoint you. But yes, you will be able to ask them for assistance, even if it may lead to your evaluation dropping. Oh, if you are wondering about their abilities, while I haven't worked with them before, on paper it says they have over 10 years of experience on the field, and numerous successful missions. Dulio nodded in understanding. How long is the trip? Lavinia asked. It's estimated to take 3 days total, maximum. The long-range teleportation to head to the Austria headquarters, and the actual transportation to the town along with a rest before the actual battle would take a total of 1 day. Getting back would take a similar process. Oh, Lavinia hadn't expected her actual first trip outside of the church to be only 3 days. Can we buy stuff when we leave? Noah kind of wanted to buy a souvenir. While Ukraine was his first time out, it didn't count. Since he couldn't bring in objects from DxD into his inventory, he left the map he bought to Griselda along with his hard-earned money that he got from scamming people. The church will provide meals and transportation at the Austrian headquarters, but you will have the equivalent of 20,000 Italian liras to spend freely during your time there. If Noah remembered correctly from his classes, that was around 10 United States dollars. Well, in this age that was pretty good. All he was aiming for was a souvenir anyways. Noah nodded satisfactorily. Dulio gave a satisfied expression at Ewald's response. After Dulio had gotten the taste of the peak of sweets the previous month, his interest regarding sweets increased. Now knowing that he had spending money, he would use that to try a greater variety of sweets. He was looking forward to it. Plus, as the three arrived at the cafeteria to eat breakfast, there were 2 exorcists waiting for them. One was a kind-looking man who looked to be in his late 30s, and another was a serious-faced man that had a permanent scowl on his face. Dulio, their main spokesperson when talking to people for the first time, gave them a bow, Noah and Lavinia following suit. Noah gave the 2 exorcists a glance after he bowed. Ironically, while the kind-faced man gave only a small reaction from protection of the faith, the serious-faced man gave a decent reaction. While normally Noah wouldn't bother speaking to the 2 or even acknowledge them in a public setting regardless, since they were their observers, it would be bad to ruin relations off the bat. After all, no strong reaction didn't necessarily mean they were evil. They could be neutral. It's just that while Noah used protection of the faith to get one step into a good relationship, it could be said that protection of the faith also functioned as a door that determined which people could step into Noah's own house. The 2 exorcists gave a small bow in return. The serious-faced one opened his mouth and gave a quick greeting, before immediately getting to business. We will be your observers for the mission. For our names, while the church doesn't want us to communicate with you 3 closely, for the duration of the mission you may call me Father Black and my partner, Father White. He gestured to Father White, who gave the 3 a kind smile. The 3 gave a nod. While Dulio made an attempt to introduce himself, Black shook his head, and said it was unnecessary. The possibility of us meeting after this mission will be low. Dulio gave a reluctant nod. The 2 exorcists gave a small briefing, which was a repeat of what Ewald had said the previous week. They would go to Austria, stay at the church's accommodations for the night, finish the mission in a day, and come back. Unless there were unexpected circumstances, it would take a maximum of 3 days. As the 2 exorcists left the cafeteria to prepare the transportation to the Vatican to teleport to the Austrian headquarters, Noah took the opportunity to make a joke, looking at Dulio and Lavinia. Say my name. Noah, when was Breaking Bad even released again? Damn it. Never mind. Noah shook his head. Do we have anything to pack? I don't think so. Lavinia shook her head. While it sounded kind of depressing, they literally had nothing to pack. Lavinia and Dulio were able to use cleaning magic, and they were already wearing a custom-made exorcist battle suit. Noah. Then let's get ready to cook. Noah rubbed his hands in anticipation. Sure, Noah. Dulio gave Noah a wry smile. Plus, the way to the Austrian headquarters wasn't actually that tedious. Ironically, getting to the Vatican from the Institute of Virtue took more time than getting from the Vatican to St. Stephen's Cathedral in Vienna, as they had to drive to the Vatican. Arriving at St. Stephen's Cathedral, the clergy there gave a relatively good welcome to the three Longinus wielders and their accompanying veteran exorcists. While some of the staff seemed relatively surprised at the young ages of the trio, the more older staff looked like they expected them already, which wasn't that surprising, seeing as they already had their debut at the Holy Sword Festival. There, they were given a similar magic item that Griselda held when they had first met that led to the direction of where the fallen angels were last sighted. Noah didn't really know how it worked, but Lavinia looked at it with wonder, so it was probably a decently advanced magical tool. That shit can't compare to his in-progress jeweled sword Zelrech, in which even after a month of studying this world's magic, Noah made no progress. Noah had Merlin's illusion magecraft and Luvia's reinforcement magecraft, so one would normally expect that it would give him some insights into magecraft as a general study. However, that was completely mistaken. Instead of giving him the entirety of the basics that make up magecraft, it just gave Noah the ability to use that mystery and knowledge of how to use only that specific mystery. How it was created and the basis of such magecraft wasn't included in said package. If Noah could think of a decent metaphor in how to describe what the knowledge of their magecraft was, it was essentially the GACHA system downloading an app called Knowledge of Merlin's Illusion Magecraft on the computer that was Noah. However, Noah was completely unaware and clueless of the code that goes into the creation of the app. Furthermore, if the knowledge was just general illusion magecraft, he would have more insights into magecraft in general, but with the classification being the peak of Merlin's illusion magecraft, which were illusions so real that the world believes it, it meant that the app that was Merlin's illusion magecraft was in its most recent update, with no way to go back to previous updates. Noah might have been able to have some insight into the creation of the jeweled sword if he had knowledge of jewel magecraft, but without the app to reference off of, he was stumped. And with only himself being able to use the Fate Universe's thaumaturgy that he knew, he had no teachers or any reference other than his extra skills. With the magic compass now in possession, the group made their way to the closest town near the last sighted location of the fallen angels. In the car arranged by the Austrian branch, Father Black briefed the three once more. The group of fallen angels are expected to be all one-paired fallen angels. The estimated number is around 5, but the thing that you need to be aware of is that information can always be false. Father White nodded. The 5 arrived at the nearby town at the inn that they would be staying at. After eating a quick dinner, they retired for the night. The 2 veteran exorcists stayed in the same room and Noah and Dulio stayed in the same room. As a girl, Lavinia had her own room to stay in. In Noah's room, Dulio and Noah were having a small conversation. Hey, don't you think this is going too smoothly? Dulio asked Noah. This may be his paranoia acting up, but everything just felt scripted. The field exercise itself was sudden, and Lavinia hadn't even mastered short-range teleportation, directly countering what her tutor said. Ewald also had said the mission was rather abrupt. Noah nodded. I had the same fucking thought. Noah felt something unusual, but couldn't pinpoint it. Just as Noah finished speaking, there was a knock on the door. Noah carefully made his way to the door to see Lavinia through the peephole, but something felt off. Her eyes were unfocused, her pale skin glassy. Her entire appearance looked fake. Opening the door, Noah made eye contact with Lavinia. As strength surged through his body, he could easily come to a conclusion, and an unfamiliar feeling of panic ran through his back. That isn't Lavinia. Plus, start of an actual arc. The involved characters are mostly OCS with a small amount of actual characters, but this is a fanfic like 14 years before canon. This is the 4000 PS extra chap from last week. Actual chapter and 2000 PS chapter coming later today. Plus, new Power Stone goals starting this week. I changed them to make it realistic. 1500 PS extra chap. 3000 PS extra chap. 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. My parents don't mind me writing, but they kind of want me to make money, so I'm going to try and set up a Patreon soon, and I need time to fill that shit up. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 11 comments 0 vote. With this treasure I summon. For the first time in DxD, a chill ran down his spine. Before Lavinia could even do anything, Noah raised a hand and shot a deafening burst of holy flames at Lavinia, instantly disintegrating her. Dulio stood up in alarm, but Noah looked back at him. This is a fake. We're under attack. Using furthest earth, Noah instantly walked in front of Lavinia's room door, before ripping the door off its hinges. Swiftly entering the room, thankfully Lavinia was in the room, now looking at Noah with narrowed eyes, raising a drowsy hand in defense, absolute demise manifested right behind her. Realizing it was Noah, Lavinia lowered her hand, her head tilting in confusion. Quote. What? With the materialization of absolute demise, it confirmed that it was the real Lavinia. Noah lowered his hands. There was just a fake version of you right in front of our room. We're under attack. Lavinia opened her mouth to question further. Bang. Asterisk. The building rumbled, as if it was only a few steps before breaking down like a late game of Jenga. Dulio, having forgotten that he had left Dulio by himself, swiftly picked up Lavinia into his hands and walked back to his room, where he saw Dulio fighting against a masked assailant in close quarters. Noah teleported right behind the assailant and grabbed onto the man's head, instantly burning the man. However, instead of turning into ashes like Noah had expected, the masked man burst into a flash of light. Their surroundings morphed, blocks of old stone blocking the room, slowly transforming the setting. Noah reacted a little slower, but as he made a step to pick up Dulio as well, he was teleported into a completely different area. Disoriented at the sudden change in setting, Noah quickly looked around, and so did Lavinia. What the fuck just happened? Where was Dulio? Panic settled in for the first time in his new life, his thoughts racing. However, just before he was about to take a step and try to find Dulio, protection of the faith created a new blessing. Protection of the faith generates panic resistance. Noah's thoughts slowed, and he finally took the opportunity to calm down, taking in the environment, hearing Lavinia call for him. Noah, are you okay? Noah, Lavinia put an effort to try and shake Noah, to no avail, the difference in physical ability being extremely apparent. I'm all good. Perfectly fine, Noah spoke, taking a small breath. Light work, no reaction. Quote. Are you sure? Yep. Noah didn't put Lavinia down yet. With no idea where he actually was, Noah couldn't make any rash decisions. The fact that the masked man attacked Dulio meant that he was probably the goal of this operation. Well, with the Longinus Zenith Tempest it wasn't a surprise that people would be aiming for such a weapon. The problem was the goal. With Dulio disappearing the moment that it was deployed, whatever the masked man activated, it had to do with space. First thing was first, Noah needed to know how to navigate this fucking hallway. Noah put his palm against the wall, and a burst of flames hit the stone wall, breaking it. Behind it was another hallway. Was this a fucking maze? He pointed his hand to the ceiling of the hallway, another burst of flames emanating from Noah's hands. But instead of the flames breaking through the roof, it was suddenly displaced, sent to an unknown location. So the space was distorted. The priority was to somehow be able to navigate this space without changing locations every step they took. Experimenting, Noah tried to move using furthest earth, only to end up in a different location, the broken wall no longer there. Still holding on to Lavinia, Noah manifested his wings and trumpets, casting a bright glow in the otherwise gloomy dark hallway. Activating Philadelphia, a large white gate appeared, but before Noah was about to step into it to teleport out, Lavinia stopped him. Wait, Noah, are you sure you can come back here after you leave? That made Noah pause. Noah hadn't experimented with Nephilim of Revelation much, mainly because there weren't many opportunities to, but he truly didn't know if he could come back or not. Quote. Damn, good catch. That was Noah's best attempt at trying to get to Dulio. But if Dulio also disappeared, it meant that he was also in the maze. It wasn't like he could do any large-scale moves for fear of unexpected collateral either. However, Noah didn't dematerialize Nephilim of Revelation. After all, other than the wings and trumpets, there was one more option. The halo of Gabriel. Well, for the fancy name all it did was summon Gabriel, but for now, that was all Noah needed. With so little information to go off of, it would be better to summon Gabriel. With this treasure I summon. The prismatic halo above Noah's head shined with a kaleidoscopic light, and as the light faded, Gabriel appeared, looking at Noah in confusion. Quote. Little Noah, what's happening? Lavinia looked at the appearance of the angel in confusion. Who was this woman, and why was she calling Noah, little Noah? Noah went straight to the point. Gabriel, I need your help. Gabriel may be innocent, but even she knew the times to be serious, and with Noah's tone, this might be one of them. What's wrong? Noah quickly explained to her the reason behind them leaving the training institute, and what happened after they arrived at the inn. So now you're trapped in this alternate dimension. Was that what it was called? This is an alternate dimension. That actually made so much sense now that Noah thought about it. Gabriel nodded, scanning the surroundings. The magic traces here, they feel foreign. Noah waited. That didn't sound great, but there's a hint of Greek origins, she added. If this were a few thousand years ago, I'd assume this was the labyrinth. It was like everything clicked into Noah's head. The sudden change in locations, the domain over space. While not similar to Asterios, Chaos Labyrinthos, the setting was familiar. Looking at the effects of this maze however, Noah could see differences. Asterios' noble phantasm created a bounded field similar to a reality marble, while this operated in an alternate dimension. Gabriel inspected the surroundings once more, before tilting her head in confusion. Quote. Rather this feels like Innovate Clear. Another sacred gear. Well, we have to find Dulio. I think that's their goal. But we don't know how to navigate this place. So that's why you called me, Gabriel nodded. While it was disappointing that the reason behind Noah's first summoning was because it was one of his last resorts, Noah's safety was priority. Yeah, so is it possible? Noah asked Gabriel. If even she didn't know how to navigate Innovate Clear's surroundings, then he was stumped. Gabriel could only give Noah a wry look. Unable to lie, she shook her head. Innovate Clear, the sacred gear that lets one impersonate God. The sacred gear has the ability to create an ideal world in a completely different dimension. If this labyrinth was created using Innovate Clear, then that would complicate things. Furthermore, the easiest way to counter this was to destroy the entire dimension, which Gabriel was 100% able to do. As the Angel of Revelation due to her new evolution, she in a sense embodied the authority of the end of the world. However, with Dulio as a hostage it made everything a lot more complicated. She inspected the surroundings once more. Due to the weight of Gabriel's existence being much greater than Innovate Clear, it shouldn't be able to affect her space. Gabriel glanced at the unchanging walls. They weren't flickering, warping, or resisting her presence. That was strange. It's not collapsing, she muttered. That means, this labyrinth might be real. This gave her more insight into how this place was created. Innovate Clear, despite being able to create anything, didn't allow its creations to exist outside of Innovate Clear's domain. Similar to how Emiyashuru's projections were at maximum strength inside his Reality Marble Unlimited Blade works, but deteriorated outside of the Reality Marble. But for Innovate Clear it just didn't allow any of its creations to truly exist. Innovate Clear operated on the basis of being a fully customizable Reality Marble. However, this ultimately was a weakness, as despite everything in Innovate Clear being real, inside, the essence lied in the entire world being fake. Beings like the newly evolved Gabriel, who embody concepts such as revelation, naturally emanated a field verifying their existence onto the world, which would naturally destabilize the surrounding environment. However, as the labyrinth itself didn't deteriorate or distort due to Gabriel's movement, it could be seen that despite Innovate Clear creating a fake world which created real things inside the world, the labyrinth was undeniably physically real. This worked against Gabriel, because from her memory the labyrinth also embodied a concept, the concept of maze. Nonetheless, the fact that the labyrinth itself was real gave another hint. Normally, they would need something that distorted the concept of maze, even for a little while to pinpoint Dulio's exact location, similar to a reality marble. Or use the counter in the same myth, Ariadne's string. That was how it was normally supposed to be countered. Little Noah, while I can't pinpoint Dulio's location right now, I might be able to remove the concept of maze. But Gabriel knew that it was impossible for the true labyrinth to be inside Innovate Clear. After all, the labyrinth was under the Greek Pantheon's jurisdiction in Crete. It was impossible for it to be here, in Innovate Clear, as the labyrinth was one of the Greek Pantheon's strongest and largest artifacts. This meant that even though it may feel and look similar, this was just a replica. Its concept of maze was entirely maintained through Innovate Clear. A clever combination of fake and real to create something that seems inescapable but isn't, allowing for Gabriel to snip the connection of Innovate Clear and the physical labyrinth if there was something that could create a disturbance, something that dominated space. But Gabriel didn't possess anything that created a separate dimension. How are you going to do that? Noah asked. Noah was completely unfamiliar with stuff like this. If there was an opportunity where another dimension or something similar is manifested inside this labyrinth, it could temporarily split the connection between Innovate Clear and the physical labyrinth, allowing me to fully destroy the connection. Damn, he understood nothing of what she said, but something like a reality marble. Wait. Didn't he have something exactly like that? Plus. I don't think I explained how the labyrinth worked properly. The villain created a physical replica of the labyrinth, but without the concept of maze. But after putting it inside Innovate Clear and having Innovate Clear create the concept of maze, and implanting it into the physical labyrinth, it's something that's fake and real at the same time, which is why Gabriel can't affect it for now. This is the 2000 PS extra chapter. Plus, new Power Stone goals starting this week. I changed them to make it realistic. 1500 PS extra chap. 3000 PS extra chap. 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. My parents don't mind me writing, but they kind of want me to make money, so I'm going to try and set up a Patreon soon, and I need time to fill that shit up. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST, cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST, cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, Power Stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 14 comments, 0 vote. Actual plot. Dulio, on the other hand, was walking around the labyrinth with caution. Having seen Noah reach out his hand, the change in expression on his face was a surprise, but even though it shouldn't, Dulio was pretty happy at Noah's panicked face. Not because he was a sadist in any way, but it showed that Noah wasn't the inhuman character that a majority of the church believed. Rather, seeing that expression, it made Dulio think, why did he even think that Noah felt inhuman in the first place? With those thoughts in the back of his mind, he was walking around rather cautiously in the long hallway he found himself in. Like Noah, he had attempted to physically break the labyrinth, and was able to break the walls, but similarly the walls fixed themselves like they were never broken when he took another step. Experimenting a little more, Dulio came to the same conclusion that Noah came to. Every step transported Dulio to a different space. Noah's furthest Earth required Noah to take a step, which resulted in space displacement. In a sense, this was the perfect counter to Noah's furthest Earth, as every space was everywhere at once. This was because even though Noah's furthest Earth removed the steps from a to be, it meant that Noah still had to be able to walk to that location. But the moment he took a step, the process instantly changed, preventing that process from following through. Now Dulio had two options. Try to navigate through this place by himself, or wait for rescue. Dulio didn't know why that masked assailant targeted him, but it meant that he was the target. If they were able to create something of this scale, then that meant that they were a large threat. Discovering that even flying still resulted in a change in space, Dulio decided to make the most destruction. After all, Lavinia was with Noah, and he had full confidence that they were able to defend against the majority of his attacks. However, just as he raised his hands to deploy the largest storm he could manifest, Dulio could feel a faint shift in space. Looking into the distance, Dulio could see what looked like a human but wasn't at the same time. Narrowing his eyes, he could see a dark purple implant into the doll's chest, its energy spreading throughout the puppet's body. While the puppet's face by itself didn't have any defining facial features, the model was unmistakably male, despite the physique looking like a malnourished male. Dulio narrowed his eyes at an unusual physical feature that the puppet had, as the contours of the bones were visible due to the malnourished look. One of the puppet's ribs was missing. Plus, have we truly locked onto the wielder of Zenith Tempest? A dark-haired man asked the old magician beside him, 5 pairs of gray wings attached to his back. The old magician next to him inwardly frowned. He had asked this question over 10 times after Innovate Clear was deployed. However, due to the fallen angel being leagues above him in strength, the old magician couldn't complain. Rather, all he could do was bootlick the fallen angel. After all, the fallen angel was the one who was able to provide the old magician with the prototype of the sacred gear remover created by Satanel. That fact that they were able to remove sacred gears from their original wielders meant that the fallen angel's plan could come into fruition. Or rather, his. But with the fallen angel providing everything from money to manpower, outwardly he had to make progress with the fallen angel's request. Yes, Lord Yomiel, we have been able to track the wielder of Zenith Tempest. Getting the wielder of Zenith Tempest was considered unnecessary in the first place, as originally this project shouldn't have made this much progress. After all, while Yomiel had somehow provided Innovate Clear and Annihilation Maker, they still had no idea where to begin to start Yomiel's goal. After all, despite Annihilation Maker being one of the biggest bugs of the Sacred Gear system, even the human imagination of the new wielder that Yomiel chose couldn't begin to think up how to create Yomiel's desired goal. However, with the death of the Witch of the South, Glenda, her research was revealed amongst the Wizards of Oz. Her secret of being able to fake death. Puppetry magic. While not to the exaggerated extent of Aozuki Tuko, which transferred memories upon death to a perfect copy of herself, the closest thing to the third magic, Glenda utilized her unique branch of possession magic in order to transfer a small part of her consciousness to a puppet, allowing for full conscious control of the puppet. This was what allowed her to fake her death multiple times. However, the unique domain that Doomsday Come fell under was able to perfectly destroy Glenda's soul even when it was only a small portion. The old magician didn't need the possession magic, but the knowledge of being able to create puppets so close to the human body meant that he wouldn't have to go through the trouble that alchemists did when they created clones from blood samples, similar to Siegfried. After all, being able to create a puppet body that had the specifics of what that needed was able to restart their research. Through this, they had tried multiple avenues of completing Yomiel's goal, which could be likened to human transmutation. They had even kidnapped a young high-class devil and sealed him up in order to be able to reference the evil pieces in order to gain insight into reincarnation, with varying degrees of success, but what was ultimately needed was the combination of various concepts. This was where Innovate Clear came in, and the creation of the fake labyrinth was a test to see whether Innovate Clear could generate concepts. And through this process, the stray magicians that were under the employment of one of the cadre of the Grigori, had decided that if the fake concept generated by Innovate Clear was changed due to something real, that combination would inevitably also become real. There were theories on what Zenith Tempest was based off of. Gaia was one of the more well-known theories of what God based Zenith Tempest off of. However, Yomiel, one of the 20 original Watchers of God, knew the truth. Zenith Tempest was created from God's breath of life. Weather, as a phenomenon, was a derivative of nature, with the full potential of the sacred gear being able to recreate God's first 7 days, even if it was on a much smaller scale. Dulio, however, knew none of this, and neither did any of the people in the Vatican, but in the eyes of Yomiel, he was the last piece of the puzzle. As the first few passages of Genesis, it was closely related to what Yomiel was planning to create. By combining the omnipotent nature of Innovate Clear, the perfect vessel using Annihilation Maker, and the miracle of Genesis through Zenith Tempest, there was a small chance that Yomiel's goal could be achieved. A perfect trinity of sacred gears. Despite being a fallen angel long before the death of Father, Yomiel had wept for 50 days and 50 nights after learning about the death of God. After all, what child could truly hate their all-loving and all-accepting Father? Yomiel, while falling due to sin, loved humans to an excessive amount, that obsessive love being the main reason behind his fall. And with no God, no Son, and no Holy Spirit, how could these beautiful existences made in the image of God attain true salvation? Yomiel knew he himself couldn't give humans true salvation. For all his love and compassion, he wasn't like Father. Despite being God's messenger, he was never created in the image of God. Even now, despite Father's wishes of humans being able to rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground, weren't they the most bullied race? The undisputed, weakest. How could this be? How could such lovely existences be the weakest? However, what about the first existence that was created in the image of God? Surely, if salvation was a being that wasn't God, the Son, or the Holy Spirit, it must be the first human without sin, before Eve's temptation and the subsequent exile from the Garden of Eden. The first man, the father of humanity, the first ruler. Adam. With a new king of salvation to replace the Son, wouldn't humans truly attain salvation? With a banner to rally under, couldn't they render the supernatural asunder, becoming the true perfect existences that Father meant them to be? The true rulers of earth. Yes, so even if sacrifices are made, Father would surely forgive me. Right, Father, for Father's love is all-encompassing. Amen. Plus, A.N. Short daily chapter. Low-key just taking the time before my lecture to finish my chapter, and now I can finally start and try and build up chapters for Patreon. Time zones low-key fucking suck. Aiming for 7 or 10 extra chapters for the Patreon if y'all willing to pay. I don't actually know what to price it is, cause I don't know the norm. Do I just make the entire collection $5 or make it $5 a month? I kinda want more money. Don't worry if you don't have money, extra chaps are still a thing. Plus, Power Stone goals, 1500 PS extra chap, 3000 PS extra chap, 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 19 comments 0 vote. My accuracy is 100%. The puppet in front of Dulio was one of the prototypes of Adam created by the group led by Yomiel. By using Annihilation Maker, they were able to create a creature with similar properties of the same stone used to make evil pieces and then implanted the assumed effects of the evil pieces through Innovation Clear to create pseudo-evil pieces. However, they only had power inside Innovation Clear's domain, but inside this domain, they had strength comparable to a semi-ultimate class being just from pure physical strength. Having tortured the young high-class devil, they were even able to obtain information regarding a piece that they hadn't originally known about. It seemed that the existence of the king pieces wasn't important to the House of Belphegor if a member knew of its existence. With the minuscule knowledge of the king piece from the Belphegor devil, they were able to create more advanced, pseudo-king pieces, which gave much more energy than their normal evil pieces. It was truly unfortunate that they were only able to get Innovate Clear, because even though they could create anything from their imagination, the limitation of nothing being able to come out of the alternate dimension created by Innovate Clear was a regretful point. If they were able to get their hands on Telos Karma, it would have been a much easier goal, but in Yomiel's words, a trinity allowed for a closer connection to the biblical God. For God was the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Zenith Tempest was a crucial aspect of the operation, being the breath of life to give life to Adam. Innovate Clear was needed in order to start the process. They wouldn't need Annihilation Maker if they were able to get a hold of a blood sample of someone before the Great Flood to create a clone instead, but that was virtually impossible in this day and age. Noah, who was just about to explain a possible solution, sneezed. What the fuck was that? Noah didn't even know sneezing was possible with Noah's body. Who cared? Dulio looked warily at the puppet. This has to be an enemy, right? Seeing as the puppet was able to move without the distortion in space, Dulio concluded that whatever was making the change in space was currently deactivated for now. This labyrinth couldn't actually be infinitely big. Dulio was now much more confident that if he made enough noise Noah and Lavinia would be able to get to him somehow. Dulio automatically created a large wave of water originating from himself to prevent the puppet from approaching, deciding to keep his distance. With space no longer changing, the more collateral damage the better. Plus, why did we only send one Adam prototype, Lord Yomiel? With space no longer constantly changing, the old magician and Yomiel were able to get a visual on Dulio. Yet despite the old magician's wish of getting Dulio and finishing the job immediately, and taking away his sacred gear, Yomiel had declined. You don't understand Satanel's sacred gear remover at all, do you? Yomiel glanced at the old magician in disdain. While he did employ the old magician and his students and had a near-magnanimous view on humans, existences like the old magician who believed that humans were tools for his own goal, Yomiel hypocritically disliked such beings. After all, if one abandoned their humanity as a human, then they were just monsters wearing human skin. Sin without salvation. Yomiel was fine being the villain in someone else's story if it meant salvation. However, the old magician that he employed, that man had abandoned his humanity in order to crawl his own path. Only if the compatibility is high can we actually start to use the sacred gear remover. After all, sacred gears obtained through Satanel's prototype sacred gear remover can no longer grow. What will you do if Zenith Tempest isn't strong enough? Are you willing to take that risk? Yomiel looked down on the old magician, freezing him in his tracks. Even if the old magician had decades of experience in the field and killed countless specimens to attain his goals, being under the gaze of someone who lived literal eons wasn't a simple matter. Do not believe I cannot kill you where you stand, Alistair. I can wait for my goal. But can you? Tisk. Quote. My apologies for overstepping, Lord Yomiel. Yomiel nonchalantly looked away, as if Alistair was no longer an issue, back to the screen showcasing Dulio's battle against the Adam prototype. Plus. Quote. This is way harder than I expected. Having the Yonqing disease, it felt like all of Dulio's true opponents were always strong as hell. Was he really supposed to be this weak? Dulio's expression turned serious, thinking back to the battle. The puppet in front of him seemed to be resistant to almost every element he had. Lightning was merely absorbed, water deflected, flames went weak. However, it looked like the puppet was weak to one specific element. Earth. But the puppet wasn't resistant to physical force, so if he blew the winds hard enough, the puppet was ragdolled back. Dulio also had a hint of a hypothesis on what the puppet was based on. Adam. While it was a bit of a stretch to determine what the puppet was based on just because of a missing rib and a male physique, the puppet's weakness to the earth element in general gave somewhat of a hint. As an exorcist trainee who seemed to be learning like it was a 95, it would be more or less unusual if he wasn't pretty knowledgeable on the Bible. With the knowledge that some beings had natural weaknesses, like vampires to silver, Dulio could think up a few weaknesses to the Adam tentative doll in front of him. First, snakes. That was literally impossible for him, so not much more thought for that one. Second, women. Well, more or less Eve. That was also a bust. He couldn't just up and change genders like flipping a switch, not that he would be willing even if the option existed. But the best option was the third option. Earth. Genesis 3:17-19. To Adam he said, because you listened to your wife and ate fruit from the tree about which I commanded you, you must not eat from it. Cursed is the ground because of you. Through painful toil you will eat food from it. All the days of your life. It will produce thorns and thistles for you. And you will eat the plants of the field. By the sweat of your brow. You will eat your food. Until you return to the ground. Since from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return. With this as a basis, it made sense why the puppet was weak to the earth. Even if the puppet in front of him wasn't really Adam, if he was meant to be a copy, then the world would naturally give him the following weaknesses. That was the purpose of God's system. This was why the supernatural could not naturally escape their fate. Reincarnated devils were still weak to light. Propagated vampires were weak to silver. The list went on. This classification applied to faker replicas as well. So this Adam puppet must be weak to dust or the ground in general. Oh boy did he have the perfect move. The now shortened stone artillery. Despite using 4 elements in its creation, it was all essentially to shoot a stone bullet at high speeds. However, time to deploy his move was paramount, even if he was able to decrease the time, seeing as all the Adam puppet had was its durability and physical ability, even if it was at an inhuman level. Dulio immediately used a burst of wind to propel himself at a distance, manifesting a large number of artillery barrels. This was a perfect time to say one of Noah's quotes whenever he missed a shot. He didn't know whether the Adam puppet could hear anything or if it even had a brain, but even Yule had said that despite the unchivalrous nature of trash talking, it was a valid way to fight. My accuracy is 100%. You just don't know what I'm aiming at. Boom. Multitudes of stone bullets shot at the same time, and automatically reloaded before shooting once more. While the Adam puppet was able to dodge the multiple bullets in the beginning, as the number increased, bullets started to eventually graze the puppet. Cracks appeared where the stone hit, but didn't break the puppet. Wait, if the dude's weak to dust, why am I pelting this guy with rocks? Dulio made a modification to the stone bullets, changing them similar to particles of sand into a small capsule, creating a shotgun variant. While the dust wasn't able to go far, Dulio supplemented the shotgun shells with a constant long burst of wind. After a few more seconds, Dulio just ditched the barrels and just created a large-scale sand blaster. The sand and dust hit the atom puppet, quickly making work of the puppet. As if it was programmed that way, the first thing the puppet did was protect the purple core which housed the fake king piece. However, the hands disintegrated when the puppet tried to reach the core, until the core also followed suit. Dulio kept the sand blaster on for a few more seconds just in case. He stopped, and the labyrinth went silent. Instead of the original hallway, the battleground was more like a large room due to the destruction of the walls. That wasn't that bad, was it? Now that he knew the puppet's weakness, it didn't seem that hard. However, Yomiel, who was observing Dulio's fight, clicked his tongue. The wielder of Zenith Tempest was weaker than what was needed, unsatisfactory. He mumbled. Hearing Yomiel's mumble, someone opened their mouth. Lord Yomiel, if strength matters, couldn't we just enhance it with Innovate Clear? Another magician asked nearby. Yomiel's eyes turned to the magician who asked, but his face twisted into a scowl. If Zenith Tempest's strength becomes fake, the concept of nature will be fake, Adam will also be fake. Not only that, but sacred gears as a creation of God, were resistant to the concept of fake, in general, for they were real existences. So in a sense, Yomiel needed Dulio to become stronger in a short time. The easiest and fastest way was to prematurely awaken Dulio's balance breaker. But with Dulio now knowing prototype Adam's weakness, even if he sent more, they would only be mowed down. Yomiel looked to Alistair. Release your own prototype. Pardon. Alistair gave a false confused expression, but was inwardly sweating. How did he know? While Yomiel didn't care for Alistair's hidden experiments, with the possibility that his experiments would result in the delay of the creation of Adam, he kept up his results. Do you believe you have secrets with unauthorized experiments that aren't hidden before me? Alistair paused in his tracks. Was he bluffing? He had even made sure there wasn't any surveillance. Release your fake angel. That made Alistair scowl. While he may be under Yomiel due to his strength and convenience, that didn't mean he didn't have his own convictions. His holy guardian angel was real. He just needed a vessel to manifest them onto this plane. But Yomiel didn't pay attention to Alistair's change in mood. Are you declining? Alistair paused. His progress wasn't even close to what he desired. While Innovate Clear made for the perfect experimenting ground, his goal wasn't near. But battle data may be important. Damn it. Yes, Lord Yomiel. Alistair gave a glance to his students. Release it. The prototype vessel of Iowas. Plus, A.N. Spent most of my time today reading Wikipedia articles on Alistair and occultism. Also, what's y'all's favorite font? Personally mine's Calibri, the elite font. Also, the Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann opening started playing while I was writing this elite anime by the way, and I was thinking, Simon low-key slams the DxD verse. Someone should 100% create a fanfic like that. Would 100% read. Plus, Power Stone goals. 1500 PS extra chap. 3000 PS extra chap. 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, power stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 17 comments 0 vote. Fake young master. A group of magicians walked through the dark hallways of the central room of the labyrinth, making their way to the location where the prototype vessel of Iowas was located. Along the way, they passed where Royval Belphegor was being held. The devil was sealed, but because of the devil's mental state, it was necessary to constantly check on Royval, solely due to the sudden volatile nature of crack. This meant that to prevent crack from accidentally destroying Royval's restraints, constant supervision was necessary. While Royval was normally unconscious, there were occasional bouts of consciousness, which mainly consisted of cursing at the stray magicians and attempting to escape. It was truly an unfortunate scenario for Royval. Like he normally did, he occasionally went to the surface in order to look for worthy people to reincarnate so he could become the new strongest rating game player, following the footsteps of his much older cousin, Roygan Belphegor, who was ranked second. While he was somewhat aware of the King Piece, due to his young age he wasn't able to know much about it, only that it was under the Great King faction. Yet during his outing, he was suddenly ambushed by a group of fallen angels. Being a high-class devil with high-class bodyguards provided by the clan, Royval wasn't particularly nervous. However, one of the fallen angels was a cadre, killing his bodyguards and knocking him out. Waking up in a cell, Royval was forced to relinquish his evil pieces and imprisoned. The only positive part was that due to how the evil pieces were made, if the owner of the pieces died, the evil pieces were no longer usable. This meant that Royval was kept alive. Unfortunately, he was forced to give intel regarding the King Piece, even if he didn't know much about the effects, but it seemed the old magician extrapolated the purpose and was able to create a prototype. Damn it, Royval cursed at the magicians as he woke up in the now familiar cell. He had waited for rescue, but if even he didn't know where he was, then how would the investigators? He didn't know how long he was imprisoned here, but did they believe that the Belphegors were weaklings? Who do you think you pathetic humans are? Do you know my clan? However, the magicians who were on Psycho Watch looked at him with a bored expression. After all, he had repeated this exact line multiple times. The next line was, "My elder is the second ranker of the rating games. My elder is the second ranker of the rating games." Wow, so surprising. The group of magicians who were passing by to get to Ayahuasca glanced into the cell room, looking at the bored expressions and the constant that was Royval. One of the younger magicians asked the group, "Why haven't we killed him yet? Wasn't it verified that the evil pieces aren't necessary for Adam or Ayahuasca?" Another smacked the back of the rookie's head. "Don't call them by their actual names. If Lord Yomiel or Prophet Crowley heard you, you might have died on the spot. Quote. You didn't have to hit me." The magician that said that rubbed the back of his head. "Also, we don't know definitively if the evil pieces aren't needed for the Holy Guardian Angel." Another spoke up. After all, none of the followers of Alistair knew how to materialize a higher dimensional being, if it even really existed. The only thing that they could think of was to create an overwhelmingly strong vessel and pray to whatever deity that Ayahuasca accepted it as its vessel. This was why Yomiel had accepted that the prototype Ayahuasca was stronger than prototype Adam. Unlike Adam, which needed to consist mainly of theological aspects and concepts in order to manifest him in the state when he preceded sin, which was at his strongest, they just pumped any kind of strengthening abilities onto the Ayahuasca prototype. Yomiel would have Alistair's head if he tried to copy Adam's method of strength. Plus, quote. Are you only telling me now that the sacred gear remover was stolen? Penemu looked incredulously at Satanel, who looked at Penemu with the same calm expression he walked in with. Quote. Do you know who stole it? Satanel nodded. It seems my half-successful sacred gear remover prototype attracted the gaze of my peer, Yomiel. Penemu huffed in annoyance. That damned lunatic. Despite being a cadre, Yomiel never assisted in any tasks, preferring roaming the surface and mating with anyone he deemed worthy, with no preference as long as they were human. The worst part was that the moment a child was born, Yomiel either killed it or abandoned it, calling it an accursed being trying to be human. Like, what? Penemu may have a lower moral bottom line than the majority of humanity and even some of her fellow fallen angels, but that was actually crazy. A genuine humanophile. She would even prefer the warmongering Kokobeel over that crazy bastard. At least Barakiel mated with a human because of romance. Even if he may have some unusual sexual preferences. But in this society, who didn't? Penemu sighed into her hand. And do you know when Yomiel stole it? Well, when he asked about it, I allowed him to borrow the experiment, and since I wasn't focusing on the sacred gear remover due to the disadvantage of stunted sacred gear growth, I forgot about it. Answer the question. Around a few months ago. Dear Lord, was this man even sane? While time may not matter to fallen angels who were trapped as the same physical age, in this age of human development, it was rather unbelievable that Satanel completely forgot about it. Maybe not. Satanel was exactly the type to get too absorbed into an experiment. Well, having a boss with a similar personality, Penemu had increased her tolerance over the ages, all she could do was lament. Quote. And back to the original question, why are you only telling me this now? I created a prototype sacred gear detector, in which while it didn't work like planned, detected 2 sacred gears with a wavelength that showed incompatibility, meaning that Yomiel still holds my prototype sacred gear remover and was able to remove 2 sacred gears. Satanel held up 2 fingers. What Satanel didn't say was that not only did it show a wavelength of incompatibility, with the potency of the wavelength, there was a high chance that Yomiel had access to 2 Longinus-class sacred gears. Not only that, due to the wavelength emitting from the incompatible Longinus, it inadvertently resonated with the nearby Longinus, revealing the existence of 3 more Longinus wielders. That was 5 Longinus wielders in one location. As someone whose wish was to create more and stronger Longinus, studying a Longinus was a literal gold mine. While Satanel didn't know how Yomiel was able to obtain 2 Longinus in such a short time, it was an unexpected boon. However, Satanel also knew that even if he held Arondite and a few soldiers, with someone of the same strength and 5 Longinus in that area, the chances of Satanel being able to take the Longinus from Yomiel was extremely low. This was why he revealed it to Penemu. Not only because Azazel was busy, but there was a chance that Azazel would also take his possible experimental subjects. Satanel knew for a fact that Azazel would try and prevent the Longinus from getting into his hands too. This was because when he had proposed making contact with the 3 Longinus wielders of the Vatican that their spies had gathered, Azazel had declined, saying it was because of political reasons. A liar. A pacifist fool who can't think of the future of sacred gears. An angel who gave up after the death of Father. Satanel wasn't like that. He would develop Father's tools, his weapons. But Penemu wasn't a fool. Penemu, as one of the 20 Watchers of God, and the curer of stupidity in man, while she may not be specialized in scientific endeavors, that didn't mean she knew what Satanel was aiming for. Any sacred gear wouldn't result in this reaction. This meant that it had to be a Longinus at the least. Penemu had similar thoughts to Azazel regarding keeping the status quo, the temporary lull in fighting. Weapons like the ones Satanel kept trying to develop didn't belong in a peaceful world. However, Penemu also knew that even if she declined that Satanel was trying to imply, his obsession meant that he would go to another, and another, until he found someone willing. After all, the allure of a Longinus was like finding diamonds for all the pantheons in the world. But that didn't mean Penemu would risk her life. Quote. So what do you need? I only want my sacred gear remover back. Satanel had an innocent expression. I'll see what I can do. But I need more information. While Satanel would like for a small operation, looking at Penemu's expression, it was obvious that she would betray him in an instant. After all, the Grigori wasn't like heaven's angels, or under the governance of the 4 great Satans. They were stragglers, taken in by Azazel and the other Watchers. And Satanel was self-aware of his insanity and fanaticism. So he changed his original plans. He would explode this event to the greatest he could. He would need to contact his acquaintances. After all, there was a higher chance of him being able to extract it during the chaos rather than it definitively being stolen by Azazel. While Satanel didn't have use for sacred gears that could no longer develop, the other 3. There are 5 Longinus wielders converging onto a single location. That bombshell froze Penemu mid-thought. Quote. Excuse me. I have good evidence to believe that there are 5 Longinus wielders in one location. 2 of which were stolen by Yomiel. 5 Longinus. Out of the 13 Longinus, all of which only had 1 copy, there were almost half of them in one location. Wait, Satanel said that 2 of them were the stolen sacred gears, the only way there could possibly be 3 more in one location was. Clang. Asterisk. Arondite crashed into her instantly manifested spear of light. That was purely out of reflex, but Satanel's calm expression didn't change. I always disliked such fast thinkers. Maybe I should have asked that lovebird Barakiel instead. Satanel shook his head like it was inevitable. Penemu's quick thinking meant that she would easily put the pieces together and determine that the other 3 were the 3 Longinus wielders of the Vatican. While most of the spies weren't able to get visual pictures of the 3, she knew of their age, and as a result, inexperience. Penemu also knew that Satanel wouldn't prioritize the other 2 Longinus. After all, he had said earlier that he had neglected the project because the extracted sacred gears couldn't grow. But if Satanel targeted the trio, that was a war waiting to happen. My plans have changed. Unfortunately for you, Penemu, it seems war was always inevitable. But no need to fret. After all, war has made the strongest weapons. Satanel slammed a rondite into the ground, creating a miasma that caused Penemu to back off. Despite falling from grace, fallen angels were still weak to demonic power, like how their light still countered devils. Who would be interested? Maybe Erebus. Nix. I remember them being worried about the Longinus, Satanel drawled, before teleporting out of the room that they were in. Damn it. If she reported this to Azazel, that was exactly what Satanel wanted. But it wasn't, she couldn't. With a world-weary sigh, she quickly made her way to Azazel. Plus, I have an unfortunate announcement to make. You know I've been doing daily chaps. I would 100% like to do that shit consistently, but I have fucking summer courses that are low-key fucking my ass. I'ma have to lower the daily chaps to 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays Korea time. However, the chapters will be double the length you see here. Not only does this give me time to write higher quality chapters, trust I can finally fucking start on making progress on the Patreon and my homework. Extra chaps are still a thing, but they'll also be released every Monday, Wednesday, Fridays along with that chapter. But the length'll probably be shorter. Also, if you're wondering why Satanel is here, it's my butterfly effect. While he puts priority on the 3 natural sacred gears, in my OG timeline Satanel would report this to Penemu not for the sacred gears but to go back and get the prototype sacred gear remover back. And because Yomiel didn't make much progress on Adam due to the puppet tech, he's easily overpowered and imprisoned. Plus, I'm still super thankful for all the fucking support on my first book that I made cause I had nothing to do over the summer. But doing this shit, going outside, and taking classes is cancer. Also might take the time to clean up some previous chapters that keep bugging me. Plus, Power Stone goals, 1500 PS extra chap in progress. 3000 PS extra chap. 4500 PS extra chap. Max is 3 extra chaps a week. Extra chapters will be released the day after the goal is reached, from 2 PM to 6 PM KST cause that's when I'm free. They'll also be generally shorter than normal chapters. Normal chapters will be released every day during the times from 8 PM to 2 AM KST cause I normally get inspo throughout the day. Also, comments, Power Stones, and reviews are always appreciated. 11 comments 0 vote. To be continued.